Chapter 1884. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Even if he couldn't block it, everyone would die together. If he died, he would die. If he died, his bird would face the sky. As a man he could die, but he absolutely could not accept such humiliation. Yang turned around and left angrily. Lightning Snake and the other two followed closely behind. Looking at Yang's back view, the three of them were full of admiration for this master. Too impressive. Too awesome. The other party is an SHME character, Gao WW. Lejuodo. Novel chapter updates the fastest. Br that was the leader of the young generation of a big world. And he was the first successor of a super sect. Such a super sect, just casually taking out any one of them could make the world tremble. However, Yang had beaten them up, scolded them and killed them. He had done it cleanly and without the slightest bit of sloppiness. He scolded them and they didn't dare to make a move. He bullied them and they couldn't say anything. This was really too impressive. Especially, even a peerless expert at the peak of heavenly being level would have to consider the consequences of doing so. However, Yang seemed to have just reached the heaven level. He was still a very, very small ant. Yet he dared to do so. This really required a lot of courage and courage. If not, why would the descendant of that senior have the demeanor of an expert, and the bearing of an expert? With this thought, the negative emotions of the enmity between ZJ and the two young leaders of heaven and earth immediately dissipated a lot, and a bit of complacent joy appeared in his heart. Yang turned around and saw the three people's faces full of admiration. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "What's wrong with the three of you? You're really too handsome." Lightning Frenzied Blade gave him a thumbs up. Too handsome? What do you mean? Yang couldn't understand this evaluation. Although young Master Chu never doubted ZJ's appearance, he still couldn't accept being praised as handsome by a few old men. The other party is the young leader of Mo Yun Tian. You're just being sarcastic. You scolded him and even gave the order to kill him. Aren't you handsome enough? Lightning Snake was also a bit agitated. Scolding him felt good. Killing him felt good. Killing him felt good. Especially when he left with a flick of his sleeves, he was really too handsome. It's definitely too cool. Too arrogant. Too domineering. Too awesome. You're too arrogant, no hero in the world dares. Deling Dao gave a thumbs up. But we like this kind of style. Following you is very exciting, very exciting. Yang frowned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That series of actions just now was actually a brainwave. Even though Yang is a little regretful, he is not completely unafraid. This was one of the drawbacks of having insufficient strength. However, he had never expected that his actions would receive such high praise from the three of them. What kind of situation was this? This wasn't very logical, was it? Run realized something. As a leader, you must show your dominance. Be domineering. Back then, it was the same in the Iron Cloud Empire and Heaven Mending Pavilion. Today at this moment it was the same. Especially when facing an enemy. Even if you know you can't win, you can't show weakness because everyone below is watching you. If you're weak, everyone will be disheartened. If you're strong, everyone will be howling. As the saying goes, if a soldier is strong, a general will be strong. The general is the soldier's courage. This is the logic. Yang was silent for a while. Then he said, "This time we are strong, mighty, and domineering. However, the future will be very difficult. Everyone must be prepared. If it doesn't work out, we'll keep these people in Eastern Royal Heavens forever." When he said the last few words, Yang's eyes shot out undisguised killing intent. The three sabers were shocked at the same time. Oh my god, this guy is too daring. Does he even have a limit to his courage? Keep these people in Eastern Royal Heavens forever? This is equivalent to directly destroying the elite forces sent by at least 5 super sects in 2 big worlds. Not to mention how terrible the revenge will be after they are destroyed with their current strength. How can they completely destroy them? It's already good enough that they don't come to destroy you. This statement is domineering enough, but it seems to lack the ability to implement it. That senior had said that young Master Chu didn't know about his existence. Then why was young Master Chu so confident? Where does his confidence come from? But looking at this master, he doesn't seem like a fool talking nonsense. Could it be that he still has something to rely on to prevent us from doing so? Yang looked at the three people with clear eyes and revealed a faint smile. Just now that Yuan Sheda died, right? At least he died once, right? Lightning Snake nodded honestly. That's right. We were fully prepared and attacked with all our might. Although the blade was blocked, the saber energy was still a step ahead. Yuan Sheda was still alive and could kill him. If not for the substitute puppet, Yuan Sheta would have died. He would have died 3 times. Any one of those 3 saber energies could have taken his life. Do they know you? Chu Yang asked. Maybe they didn't before, but now they are sure who we are. Thunder Wild Blade couldn't help but sigh. Lightning Snake and Giant Spirit Blade looked at each other and couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. This time they had really boarded a pirate ship. The other party might not dare to touch Chu Yang for the time being, but that didn't mean that they wouldn't dare to touch the 3 people. Previously, when they joined forces to kill Yuan Sheta, although Yuan Sheta didn't die in the end, it was still equivalent to dying once. Therefore this was already a life-and-death feud. There was no turning back. Oh my God. The 3 of them lamented in their hearts. Our original intention was only to protect the descendant of that senior. We thought that this job would be easy, simple and easy. With our strength we could easily do it. Who would have thought that this little guy would be so fierce? He was so ruthless. He didn't make a sound, but when he made a move, he shocked the heavens. The first time he made a move, he offended the 2 big worlds. Who knows what will happen in the future? Save me. To be honest, I also have no way out. Chu Yang turned around with his hands behind his back. He said lightly, since there is no way out, we can only work hard to move forward. If we can get out, it will be a vast world. If we can't... Chu Yang's figure disappeared around the corner. The 3 people were dumbfounded and looked at each other. Although Chu Yang didn't say it very badly, he pointed out the current situation of the 3 people vaguely. Moreover, this was equivalent to giving them a warning. Now you guys have a way out. You can only follow me and do it. You can still have a life-saving talisman with me. At least you can be safe for the time being. If you go out alone, you will definitely die. Now that things have come to this, they will definitely not let you go. Also, I know that you guys were planning to kill me in the first place. But no matter what, now that the situation has changed, your original wishful thinking is definitely not going to work now. As for where to go, ZJ had to consider. Do we do it or not? Lightning Snake's eyes were gloomy. He glanced at the 2 people. Do you dare? Thunder Wild Blade's face was heavy. One said to do it or not. The other said to do it or not. Giant Spirit Blade said, do it, what can we do? What can we do if we don't do it? The 2 people were silent at the same time. If we don't do it, we can leave immediately. Their original intention is only to fight for the soul-suppressing stone. They won't stay to seek revenge on us as long as they hide well enough. We can get rid of this super trouble, although there are risks. But we won't feel sad. Zhu Lingdao didn't even wait for the 2 of them to answer. He continued to answer his own question. However, if we do that, we're basically finished. Our future is bleak. Also, escaping this time will leave behind an inner demon in our hearts. No matter what, we will always be afraid of escaping once. With such a gap in our hearts, the matter of challenging the limitless invincible blade in the future can only be buried deep in our hearts forever. Because you have the qualifications. In other words, if we escape, as long as we are lucky enough not to be caught, and we are more careful in the future, it will be easy for us to survive with our skills. We can probably live comfortably for a few thousand years. This is what we don't do. Lightning Snake's gloomy face showed a hint of excitement. His eyes were burning and his voice was even a little hoarse. But what if we do it? Do it, it's even simpler. Giant Spirit Blade said lightly. Do it, the disadvantages are obvious. Maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, you and I will be dead on the streets and even our bones will not be left. Maybe we will still have to run for our lives together and live a precarious life. Because we still don't know who the backer of this villa Master Chu is. What kind of strength does he have? Can he really resist the high-level experts of the 2 big heavens and earth? All of this can only be a gamble. The probability of losing the gamble is more than 80%. At least 80%. Giant Spirit Blade said heavily. What if we win the gamble? Lightning Snake asked. If we win the gamble in the end and our side wins and we are lucky enough to keep our lives. As the first group, we will be completely rich. At that time, after so many cruel battles, even our biggest wish will be achieved. Giant Spirit Blade said slowly. Biggest wish. The other 2's eyes suddenly lit up. The 3's biggest wish was undoubtedly to defeat Limitless Invincible Blade. Do you want to bet? Do you want to do it? The 3's gazes intertwined. They saw the madness and passion in each other's eyes. I'll bet. Thunder Frenzied Blade said in a low voice, this is a huge risk, but it's also an unprecedented opportunity. However, what kind of fucking opportunity is completely free of risk? How can such a good thing happen to us? Lightning Snake nodded slowly. That's right. In the martial world it's either kill or be killed. There's no need to think too much about it. Being killed many years later or being killed now, won't it still be a corpse on the streets? Even if we are killed tomorrow or the day after, I'm afraid our hearts will be more comfortable, and we can avoid that cowardly heart demon. We even have a chance to achieve our goal. We only have so much to bet, but we can participate in this huge gamble. With such a good opportunity, why not take it? Chapter 1885. Giant Spirit Saber sighed regretfully. Alas, I wanted to participate in this gamble alone. Lightning Snake and Thunder Wild Saber laughed at the same time. You wish? You want to take all the benefits for yourself? In that case, we need to strengthen our previous arrangements. Thunder Wild Saber, get your people here as soon as possible. Lightning Snake said, we'll go to the Manor Master now and explain this point. The Manor Master is a sensitive person. The best way to get along is to make sure that there are no grudges between us. Asterisk. In fact, there's something strange. I don't know if you've noticed it. Giant Spirit Saber frowned and said, although our Manor Master has caused such a big trouble, he doesn't seem to be in a hurry. This is a bit strange. Speaking of this, the two of them immediately frowned and were greatly puzzled by this. If an ordinary person encountered such a thing, even if they were safe for the time being, they would still be at a loss. But Chu Yang's reaction seemed to be that he had a well-thought-out plan. He didn't care about the current crisis at all. Speaking of strange, our housekeeper also seems to be very strange. Giant Spirit Saber said, I believe you've also noticed it. That person must be a saber practitioner. Although his strength is not as strong as yours and mine, he is definitely not weak. At least, he has the strength of an elementary saint. He clearly had serious internal injuries before, but now he has recovered. Yes, it's really so. The two also thought of it at the same time. Their eyes couldn't help but become brighter. At the same time, they thought of the magical elixir that could heal injuries in an instant. Let's bet. The three walked into Chu Yang's study at the same time. How can you be so impulsive today? Shuexian looked at Chu Yang in disbelief. This guy actually almost killed the #1 genius of the ghost region in his own home. If it weren't for the substitute puppet. Or even Yuan Sheta would have died. When she first heard this news, Shuexian almost couldn't believe her ears. On the other side, Hai Lianbua also shook his head. The two of them rushed here not long after the incident happened. At first they still had a dubious attitude. But when they arrived, they knew that this matter had subverted human cognition. It actually happened. Chu Yang smiled faintly and calmly. He asked the two to sit down. This matter is really unbelievable. It seems that even I feel it is unbelievable. But if I was given another chance, I would still kill him. Regrettably, I didn't know that he had a substitute puppet. If I had known, I would have arranged for my subordinates to launch a wave attack. The substitute puppet can withstand one attack, but I don't know how many times it can withstand. What? Are you still planning to kill Yuan Shedu? Kill him again? Shuexian was puzzled. How could I consider letting him go? If a man can't even protect his own woman, then, even if he was still alive, it was not as respectable as a corpse. Yuan Shu and I are destined to be irreconcilable. His death is better than mine. Chu Yang said indifferently. As a woman, when Shuexian heard this, she couldn't help but admire him greatly. He didn't find Chu Yang as an eyesore as before. For the sake of his woman. To be able to do this, his character couldn't be too bad. Hai Xiaobo frowned and said, speaking of which, he just wants to see your wife. Aren't you overthinking things? If taking a step back can lead to a better future, why not take a step back? Let's not talk about whether he is a stranger or an enemy, whether his request to see my wife is reasonable or appropriate. Let me ask you, if he says he wants to see my wife, I don't dare to offend him, so I let him see her. But what happens after he asks to see my wife? Chu Yang smiled and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a mocking expression. After. Hai Xiaobo was speechless for a moment. He was also a man, so he could imagine what might happen in the future, or what would definitely happen in the future. After he asks to see her, if he feels good and asks for more, what should I do? Chu Yang smiled sarcastically. Sometimes you can't take a step back in life. Taking a step back is equivalent to retreating completely. Taking a step back may not lead to a better future, but a bottomless abyss. Old Hai, I believe that you can understand what I'm saying. I'm a man and you're also a man. Chu Yang smiled, but his smile was as cold as ice and as bleak as the cold wind. In addition, Old Hai, don't tell me that you don't know what kind of martial technique this Yuan Shu cultivates? With this kind of martial technique he wants to see his wife for the first time? What kind of thoughts does he have? Chu Yang smiled and said, Elder Hai is a broad-minded man, and you believe in a better future. You may agree to this request, but I have to kill him. I may not agree to it. I agree to it. If he dares to say anything to me, I'll cut him into pieces. Hai Xiaobo's face turned red. Only then did he remember. It was rumored that Yuan Shedu had the divine technique of seducing women, and he was the best at seducing women. Moreover, he also practiced the dual cultivation technique. The number of women destroyed in his hands was really innumerable. If I were to face this kind of person, I'd kill him immediately too. I wouldn't have so many scruples. Xue Xian was filled with righteous indignation. Chu Yang smiled. He didn't comment on Xue Xian's words. Killing depended on the person. Chu Yang dared to kill, but Xue Xian might not really dare to. Because Chu Yang had the final say here, but Xue Xian couldn't. She had too many scruples. Therefore, Chu Yang didn't expect these two to be of much help to him today. Seniors, you don't come here without a reason, right? I believe you didn't come here today just to ask about my safety, right? Chu Yang smiled slightly. Haha, the main purpose of our visit is naturally to ask about Villa Master Chu's safety. Seeing that Villa Master Chu is fine, we're finally relieved. Xue Xian was a little embarrassed and said, other than that, we have two other small matters to discuss with Villa Master. Thank you for your concern. What are the details of those two small matters? Please tell me. Chu Yang smiled faintly. He still had to say what needed to be said face to face. These two were still allies for the time being. Chu Yang was very clear about the purpose of these two people's visit. First of all, although Villa Master Chu is still able to use the identity of the hidden expert to suppress them, but after all, you have already formed a death grudge with the demon ghost. As a result, you can imagine the dangers lurking everywhere in the Chu family. In this case, Villa Master Chu is naturally not afraid, but those children are unable to cope with this sudden change. Speaking of which, they are now the disciples of our two sections. If they stay here and let Villa Master Chu take care of them, it would be inappropriate. Villa Master Chu, what do you think? Xue Xian said gently. Xue Xian's tone was gentle, and her words were full of consideration for Chu Yang. But the three people present all understood the meaning in her words. What Xue Xian said is reasonable. Right now we do have this concern. Chu Yang nodded. So we plan to take them all back to the sect. Xue Xian said straightforwardly. Chu Yang sneered in his heart. Sure enough, no matter how beautiful their words were, they still wouldn't help. Moreover, they also thought that it was unwise to offend the two big sects because of him. Taking the children away was both a goal and a pretense. Firstly, they would no longer be restrained by him. Secondly, they would also express their attitude. We won't help you, so don't come to us for help if you encounter any difficulties. What we did before was just a fair trade, nothing more. Even if something were to happen to you, we would only look on with folded arms and would absolutely not lend you any assistance. At this moment, Chu Yang vaguely understood the helplessness of the Purple Cloud Heavenly Emperor back then. The forces within the Eastern Royal Heavens were already indifferent, let alone the Purple Cloud Heavens, which was even further away. No problem. Chu Yang nodded readily. Don't worry, I will hand everyone over to you later. Fairness is the most important thing in a trade. Since the trade has been established, the children will naturally be taken away by the two of you. Secondly, there is the auction tomorrow night. Xue Xian took a deep breath, her face a little red. Although he didn't say it explicitly, everyone was smart enough to understand what he meant. It didn't seem appropriate for him to make a request right after. However, it wasn't the time to worry about this. Perhaps, in another 2 days the Chu clan would no longer exist in this world. We want to know what exactly will appear in the auction this time? Xue Xian asked. I definitely can't tell you this now. I believe that Xue Xian and Elder Hai can understand my difficulties, but I can reveal one thing, and that is, the auction items this time will definitely be more outstanding than the ones last time. Chu Yang smiled meaningfully. Also, I heard from that elder that after this auction, there may be follow-up actions. If you can wait. Xue Xian heaved a sigh of relief and said, that's good, we will look forward to it. The auction house has its own rules, we have indeed overstepped just now. Hai Mingbo didn't speak all this time, and he looked a little embarrassed as if he was guilty. This afternoon you can come and take them away. Chu Yang's expression was serious, with a hint of cynicism. The two of them agreed happily. In the warehouse Chu Yang sat. Beside him were the 300 children who were about to leave. They were the ones who promised Ling Xiao faction and Dreamlike World Pavilion. Brothers and sisters, I found a way out for everyone. Chu Yang said straightforwardly, currently our Chu clan courtyard is in a precarious situation, so I must send you all out first. First, to ensure your safety, and second, to have something to look forward to. The children's breathing became tense at the same time, and they looked at him without blinking. I believe that all of you may have sensed that a lot of changes have happened in our clan these past few days. They are all looking for trouble with us. Chu Yang sighed deeply. To be honest, I also want to accompany all of you to live a good life. But we don't have enough strength. So we can only be bullied by others. If you stay, you will only be bullied and die with me. It won't help. Chapter 1886. That's why I want to send you out to learn some skills. Only when you've learned enough skills and have enough power can you deal with all kinds of changes. Originally from P. When you leave, everyone should take some purple cloud coins with you. When you're outside, don't mistreat yourself. Money is just a worldly possession. Spend it when you need it. Don't be reluctant. Chu Yang slowly stood up. Maybe when you're strong enough, you won't be able to see our Chu clan compound anymore. Or maybe at that time we'll still be waiting for you to protect us. But in this world you have to remember one thing. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. Chu Yang said softly, in the afternoon someone will come to take you away. I hope that no matter where you go, you won't forget our Chu clan compound and the brothers and sisters here. I hope that when everyone is strong enough, we'll beat up whoever wants to bully us. Chu Yang looked up and sighed. The feeling of being bullied is not good. Without looking back, Chu Yang walked out with a lonely back. The warehouse was silent. All the children's eyes were shining with tears. Are we leaving? Are we really leaving? We really don't want to. It's only been a few days and there are already hateful people bullying us and not letting us live well. Those people all deserve to die. If I come back with some skills, whoever dares to bully our Chu clan compound, I'll kill their entire family. No one will be left alive. A child suddenly stood up with tears streaming down his face. Whoever dares to bully us, I'll kill their entire family. No one will be left alive. More than 300 children shouted themselves hoarse. Then they hugged each other and cried bitterly. It's not that Brother Chu Yang doesn't want us, but he can't even protect himself now. This is understandable to these children who have seen too much of the world before their time, but in such a bad case as this, Brother Chu Yang still chose to send us out and protect us. He even gave us a place to live and learn skills. We have a tomorrow and a future. Xie Danxiong's wife, Madame Mei, had tears in her eyes. Her lips trembled as she said, "Children, you have to remember this family, remember us. You'll be gone for a long time. I don't know when you'll come back. But I'm sure that when you come back, you'll have all grown up. I'm no longer what I am now. So, don't forget to take good care of your heavenly soldier plate. This will be an important basis for us to recognize each other in the future, as long as this plate is still there. Regardless of whether we are here or not, you are still a heavenly soldier of our heavenly armament pavilion. You are still a part of our Chu family's courtyard." Madame Mei said. Tears fell like rain. Below, only cries could be heard. Every child was holding the heavenly soldier medallion hanging around their necks. She cried her eyes out. In the future, perhaps this would be his spiritual support, his only consolation. At this moment, all the children made a wish. In this life, no matter when and where, they would keep this comfort forever. They could give up everything else but not this comfort. That afternoon, when Xue Xian and Hai Ming Bo came over, they saw 215 children whose eyes were like rabbit eyes from crying. Her face was completely red. They were all reluctant to part with Xue Xian and the others. Their gazes were filled with hatred. How could he go back like this? Wouldn't it be like having 215 enemies? Moreover, they would all be geniuses with top-notch aptitudes. Children. Xue Xian cleared her throat and said, "Now, your brother Chu is facing an unprecedented crisis. He doesn't have the ability to protect you for the time being. He can't even guarantee his own safety. So, he has entrusted you to us. He hopes that we will take you away first, protect you and let you grow up safely." As Xue Xian spoke, she felt a toothache. What was this? How was this entrusting them to us? Clearly, we paid a huge price in exchange for these disciples. To put it bluntly, we spent an astronomical amount of wealth to buy them. Even thinking about it now made her heart ache. But these words had to be said according to Chu Yang's instructions. If you don't say this, I'm really afraid that there will be huge trouble after you bring them back. Combined with the situation of these 2 days, Xue Xian had to admit that these children had a strong sense of identity with the Chu family's courtyard. Every one of them was a part of this big family. It was indeed very difficult to take them away. If they really said that they were actually bought back, they would probably explode on the spot. Once there was resistance in their hearts, then the difficulty of nurturing them would undoubtedly increase exponentially. If they didn't cooperate at all, how could you nurture them? So, although they knew that saying this would actually be a great help to Chu Yang, Shuexian and Hai Lianbua had no choice but to accept their fate and do as they were told. At the same time, the two felt a little funny in their hearts. Even if we let you take advantage of them for a while, do you really expect these children to remember you forever? Such a young child, as long as he arrived at the mountain gate, once he blended in with the colorful life, he would completely forget about you in less than 3 months. On the path of cultivation, time is the easiest. In the blink of an eye, 30 to 50 years or even 100 years would pass. When these children have really matured, how would they still remember who Chu Yang was? It wasn't necessarily a bad thing to endure and cooperate now. But a little girl opened her big watery eyes and said angrily, "Aren't you very capable? Can't you help us? As long as you help us kill Brother Chu Yang's enemies, can't we continue to stay?" As the little girl spoke, she was sobbing and crying, and she was angry. "Yes, why don't you help us? Why are you so cruel?" Many children's eyes lit up and they questioned one another. Shuexian staggered. Children's words carry no harm, but these words were too out of line, right? We have done so much and paid such a huge price just to take you away. Now you actually want us to help Chu Yang kill all his enemies and then let you stay? We have paid everything, but in the end we are empty-handed? That doesn't seem right, but it's not like we are empty-handed. Because helping Chu Yang is equivalent to opposing the Cloud Sky Realm and Yuanshu Realm. We have paid an astronomical amount of wealth, and we still have to help you deal with such a strong enemy. You have taken all the benefits and you are also the good guy. How can there be such a logic in this world? You are not helping and you are being cruel. Shuexian smiled amiably and said, "But your brother Chu Yang's enemies are very strong and we are no match for them. Even the road to bring you back is full of danger. Children, all hope is on you. As long as you work hard and learn well, you can come back to help your brother Chu Yang. So work hard, children." But we are afraid that Brother Chu Yang can't wait. There are so many bad people. A few of the little girls burst into tears. They wiped their tears and said, "What if I die like my mother? What should I do?" Shuexian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Your brother Chu Yang can definitely wait. It's just that this courtyard and this foundation are not easy to protect. Besides, if you stay, your brother Chu Yang will have a lot more to worry about. Not only can you not be of help, but you are also a burden. With more burdens, he will need to protect you. This will only put Chu Yang in more danger, right?" With that said, the little boys and girls slowly stopped their sorrowful cries and nodded their heads in grievance. In the crowd, a 13 or 14-year-old boy in white stepped out and said loudly, "Okay, we will go with you. But before we leave, we have a request." "Yes, we have a request." The group of little guys shouted in unison. "What request?" "Just say it. As long as it is within our power, we will not refuse." Shuexian and Hai Ming both smiled bitterly at each other, but they also felt relieved. It was finally coming to an end. "This request is, we want to know who is bullying our Chu clan's courtyard. You should know this, right?" This boy was obviously the leader of this group of children, and he spoke in an orderly manner. This was Chu Jinfeng. "We want to know the name of every sect, and who is the main culprit who is bullying Brother Chu Yang. We want to know this. Right now we don't have the ability and we have caused Brother Chu Yang to be wronged. In the future we will definitely take revenge 100-fold. The 215 children shouted in unison. Obviously, this group of little guys had rehearsed in advance. "Kill them all." Chu Jinfeng raised his arms and roared. "Kill them all." More than 200 children shouted together. "Exterminate them." Chu Jinfeng raised his arms and roared again. "Exterminate them." The 215 children shouted themselves hoarse. "Take revenge." Chu Jinfeng led them again. "Take revenge." The children shouted until their voices were almost hoarse. This kind of childish roar didn't have the slightest bit of cultivation, but it made Shuexian and Hai Ming Bo break out in cold sweat, and they shivered. Terrifying. Too terrifying. If a person, a sect, or even an entire world were to be hated by these 215 super geniuses, then when these children were fully grown, even the Sky Sword Alliance would have a huge headache. The two looked at each other. While they were worried about the Demon Ghost and the Ultimate Heavenly Sword Alliance, they also felt a burst of joy. The power of revenge was incomparably strong, and with this motivation from the bottom of their hearts, the future was promising. With revenge as the motivation, this group of little guys would improve very quickly. This was already within their expectations. Chapter 1887. It's not that I can't tell you. Shuexian frowned and said earnestly, but the enemy is very strong. Before you have strong abilities, don't act rashly. The sky had already turned dark. Shuexian and Hai Pingo summoned all of the experts sent by their sects, and brought those 215 reluctant children out of Chu family's courtyard in single file. Every child had a large bag of luggage and they couldn't bear to put any of it down. The two of them had no choice but to use quite a few spatial rings to put all these things in. Chu Yang gave each of the 200 children a spatial ring, but they couldn't open it because they didn't have any cultivation. Chu Yang, Tai Butian, Madame Mei Huyan Albua, Greasy Cat and the others sent them off at the door. The moment the 215 children walked out of the door, someone shouted. The 215 children turned around at the same time and knelt down facing Chu Yang and the others at the door. It was too late to stop them. Bang, bang, bang. 3 neat kowtows were heard. As the children kowtowed, one of their hands clutched the heavenly soldier token on their chest tightly. Their expressions were very sincere. This scene shocked everyone present, whether it was the people from the Chu clan or the people from the 2 great sections. Shuexian and Hai Mingbo were shocked and opened their eyes wide. Chu Yang also felt that the rims of his eyes were suddenly hot, and tears were about to flow out. He subconsciously took a big step forward and said loudly, "Children, brothers, sisters, have a safe journey. You must take care. No one is allowed to cry. Children who walk out of here are not allowed to cry. You can bleed and sweat, but you are not allowed to cry." When these words came out, all the children who were sobbing stopped in unison. They suppressed their tears and stared at Chu Yang with their eyes wide open. They listened to Chu Yang's final warning. Perhaps, this would be the last time she would hear Big Brother Chu Yang's voice for a long time in the future. I must be obedient. I must be obedient. Remember, children who walk out of the Chu clan. He is stronger than any other player. Even the princes and princesses, geniuses and geniuses, can't compare to you. So, no one is allowed to lower their heads in the future. At any time. All of you stick out your chest. I don't care what you think. Always remember. The children of the Chu clan are not allowed to kill each other. Chu Yang shouted, "Remember, you are all heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. We will wait for you to come back." Chu Yang shouted. He then waved his hand, "Let's go." He turned around and entered the door without looking back. Then he chased the others inside. With a bang, the gate of the Chu clan's courtyard was tightly shut. The 215 children bit their lips tightly, forcibly holding back their tears. "I won't cry." Brother Chu Yang said that the child was from the Chu clan's courtyard. No one is allowed to cry. However, his eyes were already blurry and he couldn't even see clearly. The door was tightly shut. The person who had brought the best to China had finally closed the door. "I will never forget this place, never. One day I will come back. I will come back and open the gates of the Chu clan's courtyard to the entire world." All the children made a vow over and over again, a vow that they would have no regrets in this life. Under the repeated urging and consolation of Shuexian, Hai Mingbo and the others, the children slowly stood up, stuck out their chests, raised their heads and strode out. Brother Chu Yang said that we are not inferior to anyone. We must stick out our chests and raise our heads and not lower our heads to anyone. The group slowly walked away, but there were still children turning back to look at them from time to time. In the group, sobbing sounds could be heard, followed by a trembling voice scolding, "No crying." Brother Chu Yang said that we are not allowed to cry. The children from the Chu clan's courtyard can bleed and sweat, but we are not allowed to cry. All of you are not allowed to cry. When they reached the corner, all the children stopped in their tracks and turned back in unison, looking in the direction of the Chu clan's courtyard longingly. They stared deeply for a long time. The group finally turned the corner. Gradually they walked further and further away. In the courtyard, Tai Budian bit her lips and took a deep breath, her eyes red. Xia Danfeng's eyes were filled with tears. Huyan Albua clenched her fists tightly and stood upright, her eyes red. She murmured, "Good. Good children. Good job. Good children." Madame Mei's feelings were the most fragile, and her feelings for this group of children were also the deepest. She almost fainted from crying. She rubbed her eyes and murmured, "Cough cough. Why is the wind so strong? My eyes are filled with sand, this damn weather." Chu Yang stood in front of everyone with his hands behind his back, leaving only his back view to everyone. But at this moment, it seemed that this originally strong back view was actually so bleak. After a long time, Chuyang didn't pay attention to anyone. He put his hands behind his back, straightened his back and silently entered the study room. Then he sat down on a chair. Humans were not plants, how could they be emotionless? Especially when these children were so sensible. If Chuyang had great power now, not to mention using elixirs in exchange for these children, even if they used their entire sect in exchange, Chuyang would definitely not be willing to let any of them go. But now he had no choice. The situation was stronger than him and he had no choice. Even if Chuyang was given 1,000 times more elixirs and heavenly treasures, he would never be able to nurture every single one of these children into talents. Not to mention that the current situation was almost precarious. Disregarding everything else, if 2 saint-level experts didn't intentionally restrain themselves when they fought, just the remnant force of their energy would be enough to bury these 5,000 geniuses. I changed their physiques, but back then I couldn't give them a future. If I forced them to stay, it would be harming them, right? Chuyang sighed deeply. I hope that all of you can thrive in your respective sects. All of you. All of you can become heroes of indomitable spirit. That night, outside Purple Cloud City, 2 large flying boats slowly rose into the air. He had 215 children with him. They flew to their respective sects. The seeds that Chuyang had painstakingly nurtured finally began to bloom everywhere in this world. They spread out. A flying boat was a special long-distance transportation tool in the sky. This kind of flying tool was completely made of purple crystals, iron from outer space and countless other rare materials. Each flying boat was equivalent to more than half of the wealth of a super sect like the Soaring Firmament sect. Other than having the ability to fly long distances, flying boats were also very destructive. Its lethality was also not to be underestimated. Even a saint-level super expert would not be able to destroy a flying boat by force. That's not going to happen either. Unless, it was a super expert who had reached the late stage of the peak of the saint level like D. Even a sect as strong as Dreamlike Veranda only had 3 flying boats. As for Lingxiao sect, they almost went bankrupt before they could barely build one. They even had to beg people everywhere for help. They owed countless favors. Such a flying boat only needed the power of a few thousand pieces of purple crystal jade essence as its starting power. Even the sect master of Dreamlike Veranda wouldn't easily use it if it was an important or urgent matter. But this time, both the Dreamlike Veranda and the Soaring Firmament sect sent out their flying boats at the same time. Seeing the flying boats of the 2 sects rise into the air, the other people from Ultimate Heaven, Mo Tian, Yin Tian, Chi Bei Tian, Fu Tu Tian, and other heavens all had solemn expressions. Guessing what exactly happened that made the 2 sects send out flying boats together? Yun Tian frowned tightly. Taken away. But how many did they take away? Sending out such a big flying boat. Countless sections. They all sent out the same order at the same time. Investigate. Investigate in detail. The flying boats were sent out for the sake of the saint level? This night, Chuyang locked himself in the study and didn't come out for a long time. It was already late at night. There was a sudden knock on the door. Tai Budian pushed the door open and came in. Seeing Chuyang's tired face, she couldn't help but sigh with heartache. She sat quietly with him. Tian, don't you think I've gone overboard? Chuyang took a deep breath. If I gave them to these sects for free I might feel better. But I used them to exchange for a large amount of elixirs. This really makes me feel uncomfortable. Now that I think about it, I'm just like a human trafficker. Moreover, I traffic people who trusted me. Am I very despicable? Tai Budian smiled. I know you're troubled by this problem. You look colder and more vicious than anyone else, but in fact you're more loyal than anyone else. Chuyang sighed. You forced them to stay, but can you give them a future? Can you nurture all of them into talents? Can you let them enjoy the unique cultivation conditions as they do in the super sects? Do you mean that there are innumerable cultivation manuals? You can't do any of these. As for the price you mentioned, this is something that should be done. Have you ever thought that if the big sects were to get so many geniuses so easily, would they cherish them? Everyone knows that they won't cherish things that they get easily. But after paying a huge price, they'll be treasured like pearls. From another perspective, you're fighting for their status and conditions in their sects in the future. I don't think there's any talent who would make a sect pay such a huge price, right? This is status. Tai Budian didn't give Chuyang a chance to speak at all. She continued talking like a machine gun. Although her voice was gentle, she spoke very quickly. Of course, everyone will feel uncomfortable. I feel it too, and so do my siblings. In fact, it's even more so than you. But these are things that we have to bear. Joys and sorrows are the training of one's state of mind. Tai Budian smiled. If the super sex were on the mountain beside you, I'm afraid you wouldn't feel uncomfortable now. Instead, you would be very happy and delighted. But now that you're feeling down, it's because of the sorrow of separation. The sorrow of separation is always depressing. Chapter 1888. Tai Budian said softly, that's why it's not the same as the psychological pressure you're talking about. And this itself isn't a business at all. It's just a sad life. Chuyang raised his head and smiled. Or maybe what you said makes sense. Tai Budian didn't wait for him to finish. She said coquettishly, of course what I said makes sense. Chuyang chuckled and finally felt a lot more comfortable. He walked to the window and sighed. I hope that all of these children can be happy. There's a moon outside the window. The moon is full and round. Chuyang murmured, is it the 15th again today? Tai Budian slowly came behind him and looked at the moon side by side. She said, what are you doing now, Yang? Are you thinking of me? Are you thinking of me? Chuyang held her waist gently and the two of them stood side by side under the moon. But his thoughts had already flown thousands of miles away. It was the second half of the night. The wind was cold and the dew was heavy. Chuyang was just about to go to bed with Tai Budian when a message was transmitted to his mind. It was from the sword spirit. The cold and death aura has completely dissipated. Under the soul-suppressing stone you can enter at any time. This message made Chuyang forget everything in front of him instantly. The divine source realm. Under the soul-suppressing stone. A super treasure. Enter. You rest first. I'm going out for a while. Chuyang didn't wait for Tai Budian to reply. He went through the window and turned in the air. His expression changed and then he took another turn. He had already completely disappeared into the thick darkness of the night. He went around Purple Cloud City a few times and went through the tunnels to and fro the properties he bought. After confirming that no one was following him, Chuyang floated toward the infinite boundless mountain like a wisp of smoke. Chuyang used all his lightness techniques and approached the boundary of the infinite boundless mountain almost noiselessly. It was just that when he reached the foot of the mountain, even though he used all his strength, he was still almost discovered. This wasn't because Chuyang's concealment techniques were bad. It was because he really had no other choice. There were too many people on the infinite boundless mountain. It was almost densely packed. Earth, heaven, saint. It was as if all the experts in the entire continent had gathered here. No matter how brilliant his concealment technique was, it was impossible for him to escape. However, in the current infinite boundless mountain, such a space was truly lacking. No, it couldn't even be described as lacking. You're the one who should be the one. Everyone is looking at their surroundings. Even the slightest movement will attract attention. And up there was the land of death. Although it was a land of death, there were also great benefits. Of course, I couldn't go up there. Don't even think about going up there. If I can't get it, don't even think about getting it. Everyone had the same thought. Thinking of this, infinite boundless mountain security measures were definitely comparable to the strictest heaven-encompassing earth net, perhaps even surpassing it. Chuyang changed his mind and entered the tribulation space from the void. No matter how strict the observation was or how dense the crowd was, they were powerless against the tribulation space. With the help of this heaven-defying cheat, Chuyang followed the sword spirit's call and gradually drifted toward the top of the mountain, ignoring all obstacles. Along the way he heard people muttering non-stop. What's going on? Why did someone go over there? But there is no one there. I didn't even see a ghost. What's going on? My spiritual sense has always been sharp. What's going on today? Are you seeing things? You're not the only one who's panicking at the slightest sound and treating everyone as an enemy. I'm really here but I don't see anything. You're here? You don't see anything? Crazy. There was some movement just now. What's going on? Damn, can you stop scaring people? It's already stressful enough to stand guard here, and you're still acting all flustered over there. I'm really here. This time it's real? This time it's real? The previous times were all fake. You fucking bird. If you're sick, go back and take your medicine. Scram. Chuyang was very careful along the way. When he finally reached the top of the mountain, he heaved a sigh of relief. Every step he took along the way was really dangerous. Many experts with sharp senses had really noticed the abnormal fluctuations in the air. Although it was more daunting than dangerous in the end, Chuyang thought to himself, this kind of method might not be omnipotent. Entering the tribulation space did not mean that he could avoid everything. If there was really a top expert, he could still detect it. It didn't even need to be a top expert. As long as one's spiritual sense was outstanding, They would be able to sense it if they came into contact with the moving tribulation space. The stronger one's spiritual sense was, the stronger the sense would be. If it was a peerless expert, the moment they sensed that something was wrong, they could use a powerful attack to break through space. It would not be a problem for them to break through space. The tribulation space's function was undoubtedly heaven-defying, but it was still a special space. When facing a top expert, it still had its limits. He had to use this function carefully in the future. At the very least, I should try not to use it before my strength reaches the heavenly human level. Jianghu let out a deep breath. Once he reached the heavenly human level, the tribulation space would also level up. At that time, there should be no problem. Right now, the tribulation space could be hidden from a saint or heavenly human level. The sword spirit sensed the arrival of the tribulation space. His original spirit floated out silently and entered the tribulation space to meet up with Chu Yang. At this time, the tribulation space was in the middle of the night. What's the situation inside now? Are you sure there's no danger? Chu Yang asked hurriedly. You can enter now, but... The sword spirit's voice was a little excited and a little stunned. There's still a great danger inside, and the chances of encountering it are very high. The tribulation divine spirit has been appearing all this time. This is a little abnormal. Very high? How high is the chance? Success 70% or 80%? Chu Yang asked. A conservative estimate is about success. The sword spirit said. Success? A conservative estimate is success. What if it's not a conservative estimate? Chu Yang asked in surprise. If it's not a conservative estimate, the chances of encountering danger are success. The sword spirit said with a trembling voice. The tribulation divine spirit was the nemesis of the sword spirit. The sword spirit was under a lot of pressure. I'll go. Why don't you just say that we'll definitely encounter danger after entering? Chu Yang was amused by the sword spirit's words. Swordmaster, there's really a great risk inside. There's a need for you to enter. I really don't recommend you to enter. The sword spirit said in a deep voice. A great risk? Chu Yang took a deep breath. His eyes flashed with a strong light. He said decisively, Go in. Chu Yang didn't expect that he would have the chance to enter first in such a good situation. If he went in, wouldn't he be able to take whatever he wanted? He would only give it to others when he couldn't take it anymore. Such a good thing. How could he let it go? Any good thing was naturally accompanied by risks. Wealth came from danger. This was a wise saying. When there's a crisis, there's a turning point. Are we really going in? The sword spirit asked with uncertainty. If the tribulation divine spirit really exists, then the chances of us escaping unscathed after entering are less than 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10,000. Isn't there still 1 in 10,000 miles? In this world, are there any risks that can be completely avoided? Chu Yang said lightly, Since you want to achieve something, there are some risks that you have to bear. Since I started my career, when have I ever had to take on a great risk? At the very most, I would lose my life. Are there any greater risks? If it were any other world, Chu Yang would definitely hesitate. But now he was facing the pressure of 2 worlds. Chu Yang, you've chosen another path. Even though it was risky, but this was a great opportunity to improve his ZJ. Since you've made up your mind, I'll go first. Let me take the lead. Sword spirit clenched his teeth. You can go in. But you have to let me go in front. Chu Yang took a deep breath. I'm the sword master. I'll be in front. The sword spirit said firmly, but if it's you, it's definitely me. Otherwise, even if it's me, you can still exist. So, if you don't agree with me going first, we won't go in this time. Even if it's against the sword master's orders, we might have to do it once. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth twitched. He said, Okay. I'll listen to you this time. Then it's settled. Let's go in. The sword spirit's body flashed and he went out of the tribulation space. Chu Yang followed closely behind. The sword flashed and automatically pulled itself out. It was 5 feet away from the ground, and a black hole the size of a human head appeared below. It was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. However, it was filled with the cold, undead energy that could corrode all living things. It was as if this place was just an entrance to a deep and serene cave. Chu Yang and the sword spirit's bodies flashed and their bones cracked. Their entire bodies shrunk by more than half. With a whoosh, they rushed into the hole and disappeared from the ground. The sword intent turned into a long sword again and it fell down, sealing the hole again. Everything returned to normal. At the foot of the mountain, countless people only saw what seemed to be shaking and flashing. Everyone hurriedly got up to check, but they found that there was only a ball of darkness. Although it seemed like something had happened, everyone was still filled with doubts and suspicions. This place is really evil. It's strange at every moment. I've passed by here a few times, but it's not as strange as this. Damn it. I'm really scared. Bullshit. How many people have died here? I'm afraid there are at least hundreds of thousands of them. In the martial world, how many people would die in a battle between super sects? How can it not be strange? You're right. But it's always so gloomy and cold. It's really scary. Nonsense. Who wouldn't be scared? Even the disciples of those super sects would be scared, let alone a small shrimp like you. Hurry up and go to sleep before you die. Bah. Your grandpa, your words are so unlucky. Bah. Even if you die, I won't die. All right. At most, we'll all die together, okay? The Yellow Springs is not lonely. Damn it, the Yellow Springs is so serious. The number of people who died in the past few days is probably more than the number of people who died in a year. When Chu Yang and the Sword Spirit landed at the entrance of the cave, they found themselves in an extremely narrow passageway. They floated downwards. A deep darkness surrounded the two of them. Chapter 1889. This kind of darkness was different from the night sky outside. It was a completely silent darkness. A darkness that was even darker than the night sky. Even with Chu Yang's cultivation and the Sword Spirit's soul, he couldn't even see his fingers in front of him. Only Dong Xuebing's body keeps falling, and he doesn't know how long he has fallen. Dong Xuebing didn't know how long he had fallen. This black hole was really like the bottom of the mountain. Under such circumstances, an ordinary person would have already broken down. However, Chu Yang closed his eyes and didn't care about it anymore. Since it's already here, it's useless to be afraid or anxious. Since he was already here, he might as well take it easy and let nature take its course. After an unknown period of time, he felt a vast sound coming from beneath his feet. It was a very mysterious feeling. He had arrived just like that. A gust of cold wind blew in from his pants. Chu Yang slowly opened his eyes and let his eyes adapt to his surroundings. He suddenly realized that the narrow tunnel at the end of the mountain had disappeared. Now he was actually in some kind of endless void. Below his feet was something like a plain. It was neat and tidy. It seemed to be a little strange, but he couldn't really see it. But as he fell, he slowly saw that this was actually a mountain. To be precise, it was half a mountain. The reason why it was half a mountain was because the mountain peak in front of him had been split into two for some reason. And the place where he fell was the lower half of the mountain. It was like a wooden stake that stood upright. It was erected there. Of course, this wooden stake was incomparably thick and strong. The speed at which he was falling from the sky was extremely fast. The wind whistled in his ears. Although he could see things with his eyes because he was falling too fast, he couldn't see anything. But he could clearly see countless five-colored lights. His eardrums were about to pop out. Chu Yang didn't dare to be negligent. He circulated the heaven-splitting divine technique with all his strength and tried his best to form a protective layer around his body. Only then did he slow down the speed of his fall slightly. Then, they could see the ground. They were getting closer and closer to the ground. This time it's probably going to be a disaster. Chu Yang thought to himself. Unfortunately, it was too late to make any changes now. Plop. Chu Yang's entire body landed on the hard ground. Although he had used the heavenly divine art to protect himself, his internal organs were still shaken, and he almost vomited a mouthful of blood. His two legs, which were the first to touch the ground, sank even deeper into the stone layer. Facing the situation before him, Chu Yang couldn't help but recall the time when ZJ had just arrived at the Heaven Palace. It seemed that he had fallen from the sky just like that. Now he was doing the same thing again. How miraculous. It was just that this feeling had only just risen, but he could clearly feel that his feet had touched something. An unbearable pain instantly spread to his brain. This intense and sudden pain almost made Chu Yang look up to the sky and roar. It was too painful. It was too painful. Looking down, he saw that ZJ's two legs and even half of his thighs had sunk into the stone layer. However, they seemed to have turned into pieces at this moment. What kind of stone is this? Even if my feet were to be pierced by iron, I wouldn't feel any discomfort. Why is it that it's just a piece of broken stone? Why is ZJ in so much pain? What kind of stone is this? Chu Yang suppressed the pain. His whole body trembled as he circulated his cultivation. Only then did he pull his legs out of the stone. While he was pulling his legs out, he was in so much pain that his whole body was trembling. He clenched his teeth and didn't let ZJ groan. Looking down, although his two legs weren't completely smashed, they were almost done. His legs had turned into pure bone sticks. There wasn't even a trace of flesh on them. Well, it wasn't really blood. Blood flowed continuously from the upper half of his thighs like a small river. Fuck. Chu Yang screamed and sprinkled a large amount of special medicine on his thighs. The blood flow slowed down immediately. Thinking quickly, he realized that something was wrong. The most important thing now was to regrow flesh and bone. If he really sealed the flesh on his thighs, ZJ's legs would be completely crippled. Then, 2 incomplete versions of the heavy pill quickly entered his throat. Fuck, I'm so fucking unlucky. The last time I fell from a high altitude I couldn't move. But at least I was still in one piece. This time I fell from a high altitude and became disabled. Are you trying to play me to death? Luckily I have heavy pills. Chu Yang muttered angrily. His face twitched continuously. It was really painful. The sword spirit couldn't help but laugh. The sword spirit was a pure soul body. There was no such thing as falling to death. Naturally, his body wasn't injured at all. Heavy pills were indeed miraculous. Speaking of which, heavy pills were really good at reviving the soul and prolonging life, promoting blood circulation, reviving the dead, and regrowing flesh and bone. Not to mention, Chu Yang didn't hesitate to swallow 2 of them. Looking at the flesh below ZJ's thigh regrowing, it was an extremely strange feeling. And Chu Yang was admiring all of this. It was a strange but real scene. Dong Xuebing stretched out his hand and pinched the hole where ZJ's feet were inserted. He tried to pinch it, but only his fingers felt pain. Damn. ZJ is not moving. ZJ can't even pinch it. Actually, it made sense when she thought about it. To be able to harm ZJ's thigh to this extent, how could it be soft? It's really a hard rock. The hardness of this rock is probably comparable to high-grade star iron. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at ZJ's feet. ZJ's feet were inserted into such a hard rock. Chu Yang couldn't help but feel a little smug. I say, this is the old haunt of the God Source realm. The sword spirit said, only a sect spirit mountain that has gone through countless years and absorbed countless amounts of pure spirit chi to refine it can have such a hardness. In other words, before this place was destroyed, it was a super sect. And it was a super sect that was qualified to be one of the 10 great super sects. Is it really so awesome? Chu Yang was surprised. Yes, it's awesome. It's even more awesome than you think. But, such a super sect must have as many experts as there are clouds in the sky. What kind of person could completely exterminate or even seal such a sect? There was a trace of fear in the sword spirit's eyes. Who cares about the past? Anyway, this place is ours now. Chu Yang finally stood up. The effect of the heavy pill was really amazing. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, all of his injuries were healed. When he stood on the ground again, he felt as if he was in a dream. He stomped his feet twice and said with a smile, for such serious injuries, I will die once every time. But every time I die like this, it will also bring me a layer of enlightenment. The sword spirit couldn't help but ask, enlightenment? How can there be enlightenment? What's there to be afraid of? Chu Yang laughed. Let's go and take a look around. Let's see what kind of place this is. What's there to be afraid of? The sword spirit couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He thought to himself, your face was distorted like a dried cigar just now. Now you're actually boasting shamelessly. The thickness of your skin is really what it means to be fearless of death. Although this was the sealed land where there was no sunlight and no stars, it was brightly lit. It was just like the outside world except that it was full of haze. This kind of seal is at least at the level of a saint. Lord Swordmaster. The sword spirit's expression changed. Seal at the level of a saint? Chu Yang pondered. You're saying that this super sect offended a saint? And that's why it was destroyed? Yes. And it shouldn't be an ordinary saint. The sword spirit looked at the bright sky and said solemnly, it should be at the level of De Ho. Only those supreme saints can seal even the sky, and completely seal the power of the universe. The sword spirit exhaled deeply. Only this way can this place maintain such light. Ordinary sealed places shouldn't have this kind of light. There's only darkness everywhere. Chu Yang said, I feel that this sect is the real extraordinary one. It actually needs a saint-level expert to take action personally. Uren's eyes lit up even more. In that case, there must be a lot of good stuff inside. At that shmi? The sword spirit looked in the direction of Chu Yang's finger, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw what Chu Yang was pointing at. He saw that there was also a mountain on the opposite side. The difference was that this mountain was much smaller and more slender. The top of the mountain was pointed. It wasn't like the mountain Chu Yang was standing on now, which was flat. And the most eye-catching thing was the base of that mountain. It seemed to be similar to the topmost cross-section of the mountain Chuyang was standing on, in terms of shape and area. That mountain seems to be the top half of this mountain. What a coincidence. Chuyang frowned and said subconsciously. At this moment, the second half of Chuyang's sentence was actually a subconscious attempt to avoid some kind of provocation. It was just that even he was aware of this intention. Shit. It is a coincidence. The sword spirit squatted down and looked at the smooth ground. His voice trembled a little. Swordmaster, this is a mountain. But it was cut off by a sword. Chuyang thought about the hardness of this mountain and thought again. Cut it off with a sword? It was actually cut off with a sword? He couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. If one were to talk about splitting a mountain, experts who were at the supreme martial artist level and above would be able to do it. To the current Chuyang it was not a big deal. However, the gravity of the Heaven Pass was 30 times that of the Heaven Pass. The stability of the rocks would also be at least 30 times stronger. Furthermore, it was in the environment of the realm of God Source. Chuyang had personally tested the toughness of the earth and rocks. Even if he used the Calamity Sword with all his cultivation, he would only be able to dig a small hole in this mountain. And this mountain was obviously an exceptionally majestic mountain. That day it was actually cut in half by a sword. Chapter 1890. Chuyang imagined the demeanor of this saint back then and couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration and fascination. If this saint was me, after the sword cut it, the entire top half of the mountain flew out and landed on one side. It wasn't even intentional. The sword spirit looked at the distance between the two mountains, his face twitching as he continued to narrate the shocking facts. Lord Sword Lord, you are wrong. There is a difference between having an expert on the same mountain and having an expert on the same mountain. The sword spirit murmured, the hardness of this mountain back then was probably 1,000 times more than what it is now. Especially when facing an enemy, it should be even more terrifying. Chuyang opened his mouth wide and shuddered in fear. How strong must one be to be able to do this? Can one really reach such a level? Those past events are too distant for us. Let's search the foot of the mountain first. Chuyang took a breath and expelled all the shocked emotions in his heart. But in his heart, he had an intuitive understanding. Damn it, the Shui Leihan that I scolded every day is actually such a terrifying existence? I really can't tell by comparison. The two of them went along the way and saw that there were some grass and shrubs growing on the mountain top. This was the most surprising thing. On one side there was a mountain path with white jade railings and green jade steps winding down. Chuyang and the sword spirit went down the steps. Just as they went down 2 steps, the sword spirit Arun shuddered and looked at the dense trees on both sides in a daze. He murmured, Kanglan wood? The entire mountain is actually filled with Kanglan wood? Kanglan wood? That's something? Chuyang asked curiously. Kanglan wood used to be an extremely rare kind of wood 150,000 years ago. Speaking of which, this type of tree itself isn't anything special, but it is extremely hard. Not to mention ordinary steel, even star steel may not be able to compare to the hardness of Tsanglan wood. Thus, as long as the conditions permit, most people would use Tsanglan wood as the handle of their weapons. However, later on, everyone began to realize that although the Kanglan wood was hard enough, it was corroded very easily. Therefore, it was gradually eliminated from use. There was an unexpected discovery. The core of the azure wave wood was actually all purple and very dazzling. And it wasn't rotten like the rest of the body. Because of this, the azure billow wood's tree core was collected by various large worlds to be used as a material to make coins. However, later on, it was discovered that the azure billow wood's tree core coins were easily imitated. Hence, star dream iron was added to make purple cloud coins, and so on. The sword spirit took a deep breath and said, Lord Sword Master, there are so many pieces of azure billow wood here, and they are all at least hundreds of thousands of years old or even millions of years old. It's definitely a huge fortune. Chuyang grinned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wake up, you think? As long as this news gets out, will I be able to occupy it? The sword spirit was stunned for a moment. Then he said dejectedly, that's right. This thing belongs to the government. No private person can occupy it. Chuyang said calmly, that's why I didn't think about it. Otherwise, I'd be even more disappointed. Arun kicked a big tree and cursed. Damn it, there's so much money in front of me. It's gone just like that. You're clearly always short of money, yet you still come up with such a pile of things to humiliate me. God, are you addicted to playing with me? Damn it. The sword spirit was stunned. You call this not disappointed? You didn't take it to heart? But if that bastard Shui Leihan wants to take all these away from me, he'll have to give me some benefits no matter what. Otherwise, I'll cut them all with my sword. If I can't get any benefits, no one else can either. Chu Yang said fiercely. Urun stared at him. That shit? How powerful was Chu Yang's kick? The Tsang Lan wood at his feet shook violently. Urun dropped something from above and smashed onto the ground with a plop. Ganoderma? Chu Yang was dumbfounded as he looked at the thing that was originally snow-white and had broken into 8 pieces in front of him but had turned purplish-red. This works too? He couldn't help but look up. Are you an idiot? The sword spirit rushed over and picked up the Ganoderma, his face full of heartache. This is a snow jade purple heart Ganoderma that can only grow on azure wave wood. How can it be smashed just like that? This is the purest heavenly treasure, and it's even a good thing that's hundreds of thousands of years old. You don't even know what shit is. You're really going to piss me off. This can be considered a blessing in disguise. If the people of this sect were still around, how could such a snow jade purple heart Ganoderma be preserved until now? While complaining, the sword spirit was also somewhat glad. It was all thanks to this sect being sealed. Otherwise, where would they find such a good thing in the current Heaven Imperial Court? Speaking of which, the sword spirit's complaint was completely reasonable. It was purely the kind of pity that such a good thing had been ruined. Chu Yang didn't do it on purpose either. Although young Master Chu didn't know anything and was inexperienced, he wasn't that kind of prodigal playboy, but after this incident, Chu Yang became even more cautious. His eyes were shining as he walked. Could it be that only one tree has such a thing? There are so many of them here, there should be a lot more. There must be. He simply released the Tribulation Sword and let Tribulation Sword Z search for it. This was a big deal. Wow. Another one. There's a super seal word here. There's actually a red ginseng here, and it's at least hundreds of thousands of years old. The exquisite blood ginseng here actually produced ginseng essence. Another snow jade purple heart Ganoderma, and it's even older than the previous one. Here and here? It seemed that the sword spirit had stopped calling after they had walked less than 1/5 of the way down the mountain. In the beginning, Chu Yang had been making a fuss about nothing. Then he had become indifferent. Later on he had become indifferent. Because there were really too many good things here. There were so many that they couldn't collect them all. If Rugwa didn't have the support of the tribulation space, Chu Yang and the sword spirit would probably be heartbroken. With just the two of them, they couldn't even collect the most precious things. This was a mountain that had been visited by humans for at least 400,000 to 500,000 years. One could imagine how many good things it could produce. As the saying goes, there were really too many to count. Moreover, this mountain wasn't an ordinary mountain in the sense of the word. It was the heart mountain of the godly source realm, the place where super sects gathered. The abundance of spiritual chi had long reached an appalling level. There was no doubt that such a mountain would produce even more heavenly treasures. Chu Yang kept throwing them into the tribulation space, and the 3 medicine spirits inside were happily transplanting them. Only ginseng was given special treatment. No matter if it was blood ginseng, jade ginseng, ordinary ginseng, or exquisite ginseng, etc. There were hundreds of types of ginseng, and dozens of each type were transplanted into the tribulation space. The 3 medicine spirits had to first absorb a certain amount of essence from each ginseng. After confirming that there was at least a portion of essence in all the ginseng in the tribulation space, the rest were directly devoured by the 3 medicine spirits without any hesitation. In other words, the ginseng that was harvested this time turned into dried radishes in the blink of an eye. In the beginning, the devouring speed was still somewhat slow. But later on, as the medicine spirit's abilities continued to evolve, the devouring speed was something that could be done in the blink of an eye. Of course, although the medicine spirit ate happily, there were still some things that he didn't know. All the elixirs that had been selected by the Tribulation Sword had actually been sucked by the Tribulation Sword in the most essential parts first. In addition, the Tribulation Sword had another great advantage. It wasn't picky with its food. For example, if it encountered a big bunch of ginseng, the Tribulation Sword would even suck up all the ginseng that had just sprouted for 1 or 2 years. Wherever the Tribulation Sword passed by, not even a blade of grass was left. No medicine was left behind. Because those that couldn't be brought away or those that were disdained to be brought away, were all sucked dry. Heavenly treasures instantly turned into withered grass. So it wasn't that not even a blade of grass was left behind. It was more appropriate to describe it as withered grass everywhere it passed by. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The Tribulation Sword was in high spirits and the 3 medicine spirits were overjoyed. However, the sword spirit and Chuyang were a little dispirited. There were too many good things, and bending down to pick them up too many times seemed to be a kind of trouble. It was really tiring. Later on, Minister Chu, who felt tired, went down the mountain directly, leaving the sword spirit and the tribulation sword to search for elixirs. The tribulation sword was responsible for discovering, devouring, and excavating, while the sword spirit was responsible for transporting the elixirs into the tribulation space. The three medicine spirits waited for the elixirs to come in, and chose to devour, absorb, and transplant them. The three sides each performed their own duties, and in the end, it was a little mechanized. No matter how small a mountain was, it was still a mountain. Moreover, how small could a mountain that was chosen as the core of a super sect's headquarters be? Even with the sword spirit and the tribulation sword, two heaven-defying existences that were beyond human comprehension, it actually took them more than an hour to clean up half of the mountain. If they let people in now, they would probably be so shocked that their eyeballs would pop out. This was too fucking clean. The world-famous realm of God Source, where the soul-suppressing stone was, after the seal was opened, not even a single elixir could be found? Even ordinary herbs can be used for medicinal purposes? There was only withered grass in sight. What the fuck was this? This was simply a miracle. Of course they still couldn't come in, but Chuyang, who came in through the tribulation sword, really found a miracle. Isn't this a sect? Wasn't the tribulation sword destroyed by someone? Where are the people? Even if there's no one, there should be corpses, right? Where did they go? Didn't they say that there's a divine soul of a tribulation below? Where's the divine soul of a tribulation? Where did it go? Why didn't I see anything? Chuyang was puzzled by this. The sword spirit also seemed to be puzzled. This was completely incomprehensible. However, it was lucky that they didn't see anything. If they really did, it would be fatal. Chapter 1891. On this half of the mountain that served as the foundation, there were no less than hundreds of cultivators' cave residences and training grounds. Inside these residences were either medicinal pills, secret manuals, weapons, spirit herbs, or rare metals. Chuyang accepted all of them without hesitation. Since he was already here, he would naturally accept whatever he could. He only left behind some low-grade items that the sword spirit had appraised. He couldn't possibly stay here for a few days and let others in, right? That would be too obvious. If they suspected that someone had beaten them to it, there would always be trouble in the future. Here. The sword spirit cried out in surprise. Novel chapters are updated the fastest. The two of them finally found the answer to their question on the way to the top of the mountain. At a certain corner, there was a valley densely packed with corpses. Every bone was sparkling and shiny. The skeletons were like mountains. Chuyang sucked in a breath of cold air. The corpses piled up in this valley were probably no less than tens of thousands of people. Chuyang walked over lightly and casually flipped one of the corpses over. Some of the bones turned into white ash after being flipped over. But a few thigh bones, arm bones, and skulls were still intact. They had all turned into a kind of texture that seemed like stone or jade. Obviously, these bones had turned into fossils. Among them, there were many bones that were still of the original texture. Those were the bones of experts who had reached the celestial being realm when they were alive. Even after hundreds of thousands of years had passed, their bones could still maintain their original texture. But they were unable to recover their vitality. The fatal injuries of these people are actually the same. Chuyang looked at the bones on the ground and revealed a look of horror. They were all stabbed in the chest by a sword. I'm afraid it wasn't just a sword. It was sword energy. The sword spirit corrected him. The sword energy entered the body. It first shattered the origin soul of the person who was hit, then cut off their life force. The person who did this was extremely vicious and merciless. He didn't even give them a chance to die. It's a direct and complete destruction. With so many people piled up here, the person who did this only used 3 swords at most. The sword chi must have been imbued with the ability to chase after life and lock the soul. Kill all of them. Previously, the sword spirit had followed Shui Leihan for many years, so he more or less had a certain understanding of people of Shui Leihan's level. At this moment, his voice was very solemn as he said, "Judging from the signs here, the cultivation of the person who did this, even if it's not as high as my lord's, it's probably not that far off." Chuyang nodded his head in agreement. The calamity sword whizzed out. They began to wantonly plunder and collect spirit herbs in the valley. Because there were too many experts who had died here, and their cultivations when they were alive had turned into spirit chi, the quality of the spirit herbs growing in the vicinity was also extremely high. However, Chuyang always felt that this kind of elixir was somewhat disgusting. Therefore, he opened up a medicinal field for himself and made up his mind that the spiritual herbs produced here would belong to ZJ and his family. Not even a little bit. In the middle of the 10,000 corpses, a pitch-black flower stood in the wind, constantly emitting wisps of black chi. That's the ghost flower. The sword spirit sighed. Only under the premise that many people have died, and under the premise that these dead people's original cultivation must be very high, will there be a chance for such a strange flower to appear. I really didn't expect that it would actually appear here, and that it's growing like a big tree. Ghost flower? The conditions for this flower to appear are so harsh, it must be of great use, right? Chuyang asked. That's hard to say. I've only heard that the ghost flower can connect the two realms of yin and yang, but I don't know what its specific use is, the sword spirit said. As he spoke, he sized up this ghost flower somewhat excitedly. She muttered, "If you don't know this, then who cares about that? This, that." Chuyang was startled. This and that? The sword spirit sized it up for a while and reached out to touch it. Finally, he shook his head in disappointment. Looks like it should be. Keep them both. This thing should be useful in the future. Even if it's useless, don't leave it here and let others take advantage of it. All right. Chuyang waved his hand and was about to put it away when the black fog on the ghost flower transformed into a clear human face. It bared its fangs and rushed towards Chuyang. Chuyang was startled when he saw this. He was about to use his palm to disperse or force back that strange face, but the sword spirit was one step ahead of him. He excitedly rushed forward. So it really exists. I almost misjudged it just now. Leave it to me. This thing is a great supplement for me. Immediately, the sword spirit flashed high in the sky and turned into a pitch-black phoenix. It opened its big mouth and spouted pitch-black ink-colored flames. Then, it rushed towards the monster in front of it. That monster was caught off guard and its reaction was somewhat slow. In an instant, the sword spirit's black flames landed on its body. Chuyang thought that the two of them would have to fight for a long time, but he didn't expect that the monster would immediately let out a hoarse scream and turn around to escape when the black flames touched its body. When Chuyang heard this scream, he felt as if his soul was being shaken. The phoenix transformed from the sword spirit chased after the monster relentlessly. Along the way, the phoenix kept spitting out black flames. Every time the flames touched the monster's body, it would evaporate into a puff of black mist. The moment the black mist appeared, it would be quickly absorbed by the phoenix transformed from the sword spirit. After that, the size of the phoenix would increase by one size. As the mist continued to be absorbed, the black flames around the phoenix became more intense, more dazzling and more dazzling. Not only was the monster unable to fight back, it could only run in circles around the ghost flower. It seemed that it couldn't get too far away from the ghost flower. This situation naturally made it easier for the sword spirit to chase after it. Later on, the monster let out a pitiful cry, as if it was begging for mercy. However, the sword spirit's phoenix didn't show any mercy. It ferociously pounced on the monster and turned it into a pitch-black fog with a mouthful of flames. Then it spread its wings and instantly doubled in size. Whoosh! The sword spirit returned to his human form and landed on the ground with a satisfied look on his face. He was beaming with joy like a cat that had just stolen a fish. He looked lazy and a little greedy. What kind of shit is this? Chuyang asked, looking at your perverted appearance after eating it, it really doesn't feel good. Shit. The sword spirit said proudly, this thing is useless for you living people. It's completely useless and it will only cause harm if it's used. But to a spirit like me, it's as good as eating a miracle medicine. This thing is called the 10,000 soul spiritual body. If not for the fact that so many experts have died here, it would be a good thing that can only be formed after hundreds of thousands of years of resentment. I didn't expect to have such an unexpected harvest this time. I've really struck it rich. Quickly tell me what kind of shit you got after eating this thing. Chuyang said as he kept the ghost flower. Simply put, after eating this thing I'll be able to recover my body. Then, I'll be able to reconstruct my body and be reborn from my soul. The sword spirit raised his head and roared, I've been waiting for this day. But I've been waiting for 130,000 years. Chuyang didn't know what kind of shit this was. He clicked his tongue and said disdainfully, isn't it just a chance to live under the sun again? Look at how excited you are. I've been living under the sun every day, but I'm not as excited as you are. The sword spirit was completely speechless. How can I have shit with you? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavens for saying such things? Oh right. Where did that extremely sharp divine soul of the SHME calamity that you were talking about go? We've been here for quite some time. Why haven't I seen that fellow's shadow? Chu Yang frowned and looked at the top half of the mountain in front of him. He muttered, that golden and purple aura should be the headquarters of that super sect. The sword spirit nodded. That should be the case. But something is strange. We have been here for quite some time. Why hasn't the soul of calamity appeared yet? He is very sensitive to the aura of living beings. Bah! Why am I thinking the same thing as you? It's our luck that we didn't meet the divine soul. If we really meet that thing, we won't be able to leave. At this moment, a hoarse laughter came from behind the two of them. Rather than a laugh, it was more like a weird sound made by bones that made one's teeth ache. A sinister voice said, I've always been here. It's just that you didn't notice me. The reason why I've been here is to wait for you to come here. You also know that you won't be able to leave after meeting me? Just as you thought, since you're here, don't think about leaving. Uren's voice changed and he laughed strangely. It's actually a living person and a spiritual body. Excellent, excellent. Just in time to save me all the trouble. The sword spirit's face changed and he exclaimed, it's actually a peak divine soul with complete consciousness. It's a super divine soul that can communicate with any living being. We're dead meat. Chu Yang's face also changed greatly. Turning his head, he realized that everything he had seen on the way here had all disappeared. Even the entire sky was filled with a dark and cold aura of death. Ka, ka, ka. One after another, zombies emerged from the boundless darkness, their eyes flickering with ghostly flames. These zombies were naked, and their muscles seemed to have congealed on their bodies. They were rotting like the other zombies, and some of them were still wearing clothes. Some were wielding swords, some were wielding long knives, some were wielding whips, some were wielding daggers, and some were even carrying a large staff made of unknown metal. And all the zombies had one thing in common, all of their faces were ashen. If it weren't for the flickering ghostly flames in their eyes, and the large bloody holes in their throats that were constantly being torn open by the sword wounds, Chu Yang would almost have suspected that these people were all alive. To be continued? P.S. Requesting monthly votes. Behind them, Anquan was closing in. In front of them, Brother Dong was running further and further away. Feng Ling felt extremely uncomfortable being sandwiched between this big brother and big sister. Brothers and sisters, let us trample the mountains and march towards the stars. Advance. Advance. Charge in. Chapter 1892. Lord Sword Master. The sword spirit was so nervous that he almost stuttered. This is really bad. This is a zombie puppet cultivated after the tribulation godly soul devoured everyone's dissipated original souls. One of the prerequisites for making this kind of zombie puppet is that the cultivation of these puppets must be at least celestial being when they were alive. This is really troublesome. This place is actually the location of a super sect that is not inferior to the current Soaring Heaven faction. Chu Yang's expression became infinitely calm. He said coldly, whether it's bad or not, we'll know in a while. What's the use of panicking now? The more dangerous the moment, the calmer Chu Yang's mind was. Baidu search P.C. Chu Yang's eyes turned. He had already judged the current situation. There was no doubt that they had no chance of winning. Chu Yang and the sword spirit would have died a violent death in less than a round if they had fought normally. In all directions, there were a total of 7 zombies walking over mechanically, slowly raising their weapons. Another sharp whistling sound was heard in the air, and a cloud of gray smoke swept past with a schwa sound. The dense smoke twisted in the air, and slowly revealed the image of an old man in a hemp robe. His long beard fluttered in the air, and his face was thin. This old man who had suddenly appeared was dressed like the people outside. He stood in the air with his hands clasped behind his back. His pair of ice-cold eyes were looking at Chu Yang and the sword spirit. In his eyes, there was a kind of extremely cold and excited expression. The sword spirit trembled. He was really scared. He didn't expect to encounter such a desperate situation when he just got the opportunity to become a human again. Could it be that his idea of becoming a human again was against heaven's will? He didn't expect it at all. This tribulation godly soul was actually a powerful one that had never appeared in history. It had reached the point where it was very human-like. Its cultivation was as if it was alive, and its wisdom was as complete as a living person. This kind of tribulation godly soul was completely capable of fighting against super experts at the saint level, although its strength was only equivalent to a beginner saint. But in the Heaven Imperial Court, it was already close to a supreme existence. It even had an additional ability compared to a saint in the general sense, which was that it couldn't be killed. It couldn't be smashed, and it was almost impossible to destroy a soul body. It couldn't be injured at all, and it couldn't feel pain. Even if its body was completely smashed into pieces, it could be reassembled in the next moment. Moreover, its power was not reduced in the slightest. This was definitely a divine soul calamity that would give even a saint stage expert a headache. If the myriad soul's soul body was a great tonic for the sword spirit, then the sword spirit was also the best tonic for this incomparably powerful divine soul in front of him. The sword spirit and Chu Yang had no power to fight back in front of such an existence. The Tribulation Sword Master and Tribulation Sword Spirit were about to die. How to avoid death and prolong life? The crisis didn't end there. The sword spirit and Chu Yang realized this almost at the same time. From the moment the soul of the calamity appeared, he actually felt a strong restriction. Yes, it was a restriction. Instead of suppression, if it was purely suppression. That was because his movements were inconvenient, and he was intimidated and suppressed by a certain aspect of the other party's cultivation, aura, and so on. However, the real situation now was completely different. His body could still move freely, but he could only move within a range of 3 feet around him. His divine sense and internal breath could also operate on their own, but they couldn't extend beyond that range. But if he wanted to go out, whether it was his physical body, divine sense, or internal breath, it was completely impossible. Even if he wanted to go back to the tribulation space, he couldn't do so. Judging from this situation, it seemed that the entire space here had been sealed. The sword spirit's face changed drastically. This time they were really in trouble. Chu Yang's face also changed a little. Even the tribulation space couldn't be returned. His biggest trump card couldn't be used directly. This was really a serious matter. But he immediately calmed down. In such a terrible situation where he was the meat on the chopping board, what was the use of panicking? The more panicked he was, the faster he might die. Even if he really entered the yellow spring, it was better to be calm. In other words, this was the legendary, dying to save face. But how many people in the world could really be so, dying to save face? Even if he died, he would die in a carefree manner. Why didn't he just kill me directly? Chu Yang thought quickly. Could it be that he wants to know something? This was the most reliable inference that Chu Yang could think of. Or, he hasn't seen a living person here for too long and is very lonely? Another unreliable but barely plausible inference. Or, is there any other reason? It should be like this. If it were me, I would have long collapsed in a place where I couldn't get out for hundreds of thousands of years. Loneliness and solitude were the greatest enemies of mankind. Even the divine spirit of a tribulation was not exempt from this. Countless thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind, but his face remained calm. Since he didn't die immediately, then there was still a chance. Although the chance in front of him was very slim, it was still a chance. A crisis might not necessarily be unable to turn into a turning point. As long as the other party had some kind of motive, he might have a chance of survival. The divine spirit of a tribulation that suddenly floated out waved his hand. The zombies and puppets that were advancing around immediately stopped in their tracks. They stood there mechanically, motionless like wooden sculptures. Then, the divine spirit of a tribulation walked down from the sky step by step with his hands behind his back. He wore a long robe and his long beard fluttered in the wind. His face was thin, and his spirit was hale and hearty. This demeanor, this bearing, this was clearly that of a peerless expert, a peerless genius. But from the situation in front of him, no matter how one looked at it, this was clearly a living person. However, this living person was clearly just formed by the smoke. It completed a series of transformations right in front of Chu Yang and the sword spirit. Chu Yang's psychological quality was indeed strong enough. At this moment he could still maintain a calm expression. He even smiled and cupped his fists in greeting. "Senior, it's really fate that we meet today." The divine spirit of a tribulation looked at Chu Yang with a pair of eyes. He actually smiled like spring water and nodded slightly. He said, "Not bad, not bad. You and I are indeed fated. This old man has been trapped here for hundreds of thousands of years. Only now do I see a living person like you. If this isn't fate, then what is it?" The divine spirit of a tribulation spoke in a somewhat gloomy and dry voice at the beginning. He even stuttered a little. But after a few sentences, the gloominess in his voice was removed and it became smooth. This was probably because he rarely spoke for hundreds of thousands of years. No matter who it was, it would be very lucky if they didn't directly become mute after hundreds of thousands of years. It was already extremely rare to be able to speak like this divine spirit of a tribulation. And this was the voice of the divine spirit of a tribulation. The more he spoke, the more peaceful and kind it became. It was even more magical. At the same time, Chu Yang and the sword spirit were even more shocked. This person's strength was really terrifying. They really didn't know what level he had reached. But regarding this change, Chu Yang felt more at ease. Even if the strength of this soul calamity was stronger than he had expected, it didn't matter. His strength had long since exceeded the scope of what he could resist, so what if he was a bit stronger? On the contrary, by talking to him in such an amiable manner, he had already provided him with an opportunity to turn the situation around. The divine spirit of a tribulation casually pointed at him. The sword spirit only felt that there was another layer of imprisonment on him. He couldn't even speak and could only stand there in a daze. Let's have a good chat now. This little soul is more or less a hindrance here. If it weren't for the fact that I need to devour his soul together, I would have killed him right now. The divine spirit of a tribulation smiled faintly. His voice was clear and elegant. Senior, I'm very honored to have an invitation. Chu Yang laughed. To have an opportunity to have a good chat with you is a great opportunity that only comes once in hundreds of thousands of years. There are countless people in the world, but only I have such a fate. Of course, you should feel honored because you have such a heaven-sent opportunity to give your body to me. Your body can shock the world and become a mighty being in the world. You can even live forever. How can I not be honored? The divine spirit of a tribulation said somewhat mockingly. Chu Yang said politely, so that's what you plan to do? To be able to give my body to you, I naturally feel honored. But may I ask, if I give my body to you, how should I give it to you? And after I give it to you, where should I place my soul? I believe that if I give my body to you, you won't treat me badly, right? The divine spirit of a tribulation chuckled. Little one, you're quite bold. You're very imaginative. At this juncture, you actually dare to bicker with me and even bargain with me. Chu Yang laughed. If you're audacious, you'll die if you bargain, but don't you think you won't die if you kneel and beg for mercy? Since I can't escape no matter what, I might as well fight with you. If I can't get away with it, it's still a bargain. In front of you, I'm afraid that's already the limit of what I can do. Good. Well said. The divine spirit of a tribulation revealed a look of appreciation. You're so young. It's rare for you to be so tough. When I devour your soul, I'll let you suffer less. I'll just give you a quick death. But in the end, your soul will still be destroyed and you'll be doomed eternally. At this juncture, you can still think for me. That's really rare. Chu Yang said gratefully, you must have been a good person when you were alive. Others wanted him to be doomed eternally, and he actually praised them for being a good person. The divine spirit of a tribulation looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. He said, I didn't expect that after hundreds of thousands of years, I'll see a living person for the first time. Are all the young people nowadays so good? You've made me look at you in a new light. P.S. Updated. He let out a sigh of relief. There were still 8 hours and 4 chapters left. It should be about time. Let me say one thing. There's a bad trend in the book review section now. Some people are asking us to buy monthly tickets. This makes me very angry. The last battle of pride, no matter whether we win or lose, must be fair and square. We've failed countless times, but we can still hold our heads high and laugh proudly because of this. Because we have a clear conscience. This is the last battle of this month. We can't allow this kind of stain. We must accept victory with pride, and we must also accept defeat with pride. I'll say one thing here. All the readers of Pride are not allowed to buy a monthly ticket. Otherwise, it'll be an insult to me. Wind conquers the world. Let us be proud to death. We'd rather break than submit. The world-defying stage heavens was just like this. Give the opponent the greatest respect and fight with all your strength. Chapter 1893. I thought that Senior had already had a whole new level of respect for me. Speaking of which, my nerves are probably a little thick-skinned. They all say that I don't like others. For Senior to meet me, it's Senior's luck. However, since the situation has reached such a stage, can I be more honored? Chu Yang smiled amiably. The sword spirit really admired Chu Yang from the bottom of his heart. Chu Yang was already at such a stage of certain death, yet he could still talk cheerfully and wittily. Even his expression didn't change in the slightest. Could it be that his nerves are made of iron? No, even if they were made of iron, they would have already melted at this point. The tribulation divine soul tilted his head and looked at him with interest. This little guy is really too interesting. Since Junior is about to be swallowed by Senior, and my soul will be destroyed, I wonder if I can have the honor of knowing Senior's name? Chuyang smiled politely. May I know Senior's name? Even if this junior dies, I'll still be a ghost. I believe Senior won't refuse to grant such a small wish, right? Haha, little guy, do you know what it means to have your soul destroyed? You actually want to be a ghost? Do you think you still have the chance to be a ghost? The Tribulation Divine Soul first laughed and mocked. Obviously, he was at a disadvantage in the previous bickering and was unwilling to accept it. Now that he had the chance, he immediately took revenge. Chuyang's heart moved. Revenge for the smallest grievance. Although the cultivation of this Tribulation Divine Soul was high, his manners might not be that good. Then, the Tribulation Divine Soul seemed to be sad again, and a melancholy look appeared on his face. He murmured, I'm already a Tribulation Divine Soul now. Do I still have the face to mention the name of the past? The past is like dust and time is like smoke. I've disgraced my ancestors. Chuyang smiled faintly and said, the opponent is strong. It's not the fault of fighting. Even if I failed at the last minute, I've been like this for hundreds of thousands of years. Quietly feeling the passage of time is also a kind of cultivation. This is also a rare luck. As for whether it's bad luck or good luck, it's all up to you. Different people have different opinions. A look of approval appeared in the eyes of the Tribulation Divine Soul, and it looked up to the sky and sighed. That's right. This is also another kind of cultivation. Misfortune? Lucky? It's a matter of opinion. He stood there for a while, feeling a little dejected. There was a hint of reluctance in his voice as he said, this old man hasn't spoken to you for hundreds of thousands of years. Today I'm able to chat with you, Chuyang said very understandingly. Junior can accompany Senior to chat for a while. The Divine Soul of Calamity sighed. You are a sensible child. He was silent for a moment before he said, now. How many years has it been since he was outside? The Emperor Lord of the Eastern Royal Heaven. Is it still Shueleihan? Chuyang said, I've never calculated the years outside. But the Emperor of the East is indeed Shueleihan. There's no doubt about it. Ha ha ha. The expression of the Divine Soul of Calamity changed a little. From a thin old man with a kind face and kind eyes, he turned into a ferocious ghost with a grimacing face. But then he changed back and actually smiled lightly. Shueleihan is indeed worthy of being the Emperor of the East. He is indeed wise and mighty. Chuyang's heart skipped a beat. He obviously couldn't keep his composure. But he suppressed it forcefully. This was also something that could be made use of. Then he thought to himself, looking at his change, could it be that this fellow is very dissatisfied with Shueleihan? Could it be that Shueleihan killed him? He smiled amiably and said, but although the Emperor is wise and mighty, there are some things that can be done. But there are some things that are not fair. Senior has been out for so many years. Even if I tell you some things, Senior won't listen. It's better if I don't say it. The Divine Soul smiled faintly and said, if you don't want to talk about it, then let's not talk about it. How can we judge the rights and wrongs of such a peak-level figure? He seemed to be in no hurry to talk about this topic. Chuyang said, that's right. May I ask, Senior, which sect was the original sect of this place? How come you don't see any sign of a sect when you come in this time? He actually managed to divert the topic away. The Divine Soul of the Calamity finally showed a bit of unhappiness on his face. He said faintly, no matter if it is a sect or sect, it has been destroyed in the end. It turned into dust and was annihilated in the annals of history. What is the point of mentioning its name now? Therefore, on the day this old man woke up, I destroyed all the symbols that could prove my sect's identity. So that's how it is. No wonder, no wonder. Chuyang suddenly realized. Then he casually flattered him, Senior is indeed wise. The Tribulation Divine Soul looked at the little thing coldly, but now it felt disgusted no matter how it looked at it. Back then, when his sect was massacred, the Eastern Emperor Shueleihan stood by and did nothing. This matter made him bear a grudge in his heart, and he couldn't let it go even after his death. Even though he took human form again, he still bore a grudge. Naturally, he couldn't wait for someone to say more bad things about Shueleihan. Although he didn't mind it on the surface, he hoped that Chuyang would say more bad things about the Eastern Emperor. But Chuyang actually refused to mention it. Why did he feel that this bastard was pleasing to the eye just now? It must be an illusion, it must be an illusion. Has His Majesty the Eastern Emperor made any new moves in these years? The Divine Soul of the Calamity Divine Soul asked. This sentence was actually trying to get to the bottom of it, hoping to find something to show off so that he could use it as a pretext to make a fuss. Chu Yang shook his head blankly, looking honest and sincere. Senior, I've actually just ascended to the heavens for a few days. Even if it's the Eastern Royal Heavens, my knowledge is extremely limited. I've never really heard of His Majesty the Eastern Emperor's moves. The divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul's face twitched. He really felt like cursing out loud. Before his death, he had cultivated himself very well, and his cultivation was very high. Naturally, his willpower was also very strong. But after transforming into a divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul and going through these hundreds of thousands of years of loneliness by himself, he actually became more and more impatient. It was as if his original calmness had disappeared. He actually became irritable and easily angered. In just a short while, he actually had so many murderous intents. But he really couldn't bear to kill Chu Yang just like that. It had been hundreds of thousands of years since he last talked to someone. Now that he was talking to someone, his heart was surging with emotions. There was some indescribable excitement and even novelty. Next, the divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul started to ask Chu Yang about the general situation of the outside world. Chu Yang answered all these questions seriously. But under the cover of his honest and sincere expression, there were endless lies. Every word that this fellow said was a complete lie. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Right now, after the series of great battles in the outside world, the number of experts is very low. For someone like me, although I can't be considered a first-rate or second-rate expert, I can still be considered a third-rate expert. Chu Yang said casually. What? With your trashy strength you can actually be considered a third-rate expert? The divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul was really shocked this time. This small ant in front of him had at most just broken through to the heaven realm. If he could be considered a third-rate expert, then how would the martial arts realm in the outside world fall to the shit standard? No wonder Senior is so shocked. Actually, I've also read many ancient books. They recorded the endless glory of countless peerless experts in the past. This junior's bit of strength is at most slightly stronger than an ant. But right now, the number of experts in the Eastern Royal Heavens has withered. With this junior's strength, the officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens have repeatedly invited this junior to join them. Chu Yang was obviously addicted to making up stories. The more he spoke, the more ridiculous it became. I say, Junior, even if you want to boast in front of this old man, shouldn't you at least say something more reliable? With your bit of strength, the officials of the Eastern Royal Heavens actually invited you to join them time and time again? Do you even believe your words? The divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul was angered by Chu Yang's words. Junior's strength might be weak, but my background is clean and my strength can be considered passable. This is why the Eastern Royal Heavens tried their best to invite Junior several times, but Junior is truly afraid of bringing trouble to myself. I've always politely rejected them because according to the rumors, the Eastern Royal Emperor Jun Shui Leihan brought up the matter of the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor again and offended the Sage Monarch. I heard that he is currently heavily injured and if he gets involved with the Eastern Royal Heavens now, it would be a disaster and not a blessing. Chu Li's expression was solemn as he replied respectfully, Senior has been here for a long time and your knowledge of the outside world is too limited. The current Eastern Royal Heavens is no longer the same as before. Back then, due to an unforeseen event, the Eastern Royal Heavens suffered great losses. Junior's strength might be weak, but my background is clean and my strength can be considered passable. Chu Yang sighed, of course this is only a rumor. How can a small character like me know the real situation? Shui Leihan is heavily injured. Because of the matter of the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor? The divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul became agitated as if he had eaten an aphrodisiac. Are you serious? Something happened to the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao? Chu Yang was instantly speechless. He always spouted nonsense easily but at this moment he actually didn't know how to continue. How many years had it been since the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao, died? It should be at least several 100,000 years, right? And this divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul that had been buried for several 100,000 years actually didn't know that the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor was dead? Chu Yang's heart was cramping. How many years had it been since this fellow died? Could it be more than 1,000,000 years? Of course, in such a space one couldn't sense the passage of time at all. Even this divine soul of the Calamity Divine Soul probably didn't know how many years had passed. You don't even know about the matter of the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor? Chu Yang was speechless. You said that something happened to the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor? The divine soul of Calamity became a little crazy. His eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty look. He shouted, what the hell happened to Zihao? Hurry and tell me. If you spout any more nonsense, I'll swallow you alive. With a boom, his body suddenly exploded, turning into countless ghost heads, circling wildly in the air. Countless heads were hideous and terrifying as they raised their heads and roared, "Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao." Something had happened to him. What the hell happened to him? Say it quickly. Tell me. At this moment he had gone completely crazy. Chapter 1894. Although Chu Yang's face looked frightened, it was mostly fake. However, his body was really covered in cold sweat. Update P. It wasn't that Chu Yang was timid, but this was the first time he had seen such a phenomenon in his life. Thousands of ghosts appeared right in front of him. A timid person would have already passed out from such a scene. His mind was full of thoughts, and for a moment he didn't know how to speak at all. This person definitely knows the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds. He was actually so shocked and agitated when he heard about Zihao. In that case, is this person a friend or a foe of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds? If he made a wrong judgment at this time, judging from this guy's impulsiveness, he would immediately lose his life. No matter how much he could talk, it would be useless. One wrong word and the door to death would open. From the way he kept calling him Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds or Zihao, and didn't use honorifics, both parties shouldn't be friends. Chu Yang thought quickly. At least not brothers. And there was only impatience in his voice, without any hint of worry. This means, he's an enemy? Say it. Why aren't you saying it? Countless ferocious heads roared together, their voices shaking the world. What exactly happened to Zihao? He's dead, Chu Yang said in the calmest tone. His soul has completely dispersed. As for the details, it's not something I can know. Dead? The Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds, Zihao, is dead? And his soul has dispersed? The spirit of the tribulation screamed in disbelief. Even the heads of countless ghosts shook violently and turned into black smoke at this moment. It was all blurry. It was obvious how much this news affected him. Then, a black smoke rolled and suddenly appeared in front of Chu Yang again. From what you know, tell me in detail, how did Zihao die? How did he die? How did he die? The voice was hurried and in the end, it directly connected without stopping. Chu Yang frowned. He said, "You're so close I can't quite breathe." That black smoke immediately retreated 5 feet and transformed back into a huge ghost head with a radius of 3 feet. That mouth seemed to be even bigger than the head. It raised its head and roared, "I've retreated. Hurry up and tell me how he died. How did he die? How did he die?" Ah. Boom. Suddenly the entire space was filled with ghostly cries and demons, and black smoke filled the air. It covered the sky and covered the earth. An extremely sinister aura suddenly enveloped the entire area. Looking around, other than the area within 30 feet that was barely visible, the rest of the area had sunk into an extremely dark place where one could not even see their own fingers. Thump thump. Dong. Chu Yang could clearly hear the rapid beating of thousands and tens of thousands of hearts. But in this place, there was no other living thing besides him, including the sword spirit. The sword spirit didn't have an organ like a heart. What was going on? However, the changes weren't entirely negative. That was because Chu Yang had another feeling. And this feeling made Chu Yang extremely happy. This change was that the spatial seal controlled by the soul of the calamity seemed to show signs of loosening. It seemed that he had not realized that there was a problem with his control due to the agitation of his emotions. However, this small gap was far from enough for Chu Yang to escape. However, Chu Yang's heart had already calmed down a little. With hope, with this little bit of opportunity, there might be a chance for survival. Sure enough, his weakness was his spiritual power. It's about determination. Although he had heard the sword spirit talk about the horror of the soul of calamity before he came in, he really didn't expect it. The soul of calamity could actually be so terrifying. This adventure was enough to make Chu Yang unforgettable. It was definitely the closest he had come to death in his 2 lives. There was no other. Even just now he was already prepared to die with a smile. Not to mention that death in his previous life, that was a real death, not a close one. From what I know, combined with all the legends of the Heavenly Imperial Court, the death of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds back then was really the creation of an eternal legend. Chu Yang sorted out his emotions and slowly went on. He told the soul of the legend of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds that he knew about, with some changes. Of course, he wouldn't be so stupid as to tell everything, but 70% of it was true. As soon as he opened his mouth, The soul of Calamity suddenly quieted down and listened to every word with rapt attention. He was afraid of missing out on a little bit. It could be seen how urgent and serious he was about this information. After attracting all of the divine soul's attention, Chu Yang tried to add a little bit of the power of bewitchment to his voice. If this little bit of power was compared to the total amount that Chu Yang could use, this little bit of power of bewitchment was definitely less than 1%. But Chu Yang really didn't dare to increase it. If this wasn't already the limit of his control, he would have even reduced it a little. Because once it was detected he would really be dead. But he couldn't not use it at this juncture. This might be his only chance to escape. Where the opportunity was, where the chance of survival was. This time, the soul of Calamity was only focused on listening to the matter of the heavenly emperor of purple clouds and really didn't notice this. He didn't need to worry about an ant like Chu Yang plotting against him at all. If he dared to plot against him, he could plot against him. From his point of view, Chu Yang would definitely not be able to escape from here. He could slowly play with him. Even if he played for decades, it wouldn't be a problem. How many years had it been? No one had accompanied him to talk, no one had accompanied him to pass the time. He was really so lonely that he was going crazy. The extraterrestrial demons invaded the purple clouds' heavens on a large scale. The heavenly emperor of purple clouds led his troops to resist. Chu Yang's voice was full of emotion and was very infectious. The soul of Calamity listened quietly and didn't interrupt at all. It was as if he was fascinated by it. It's a pity that in the end he was alone and without help. All of them died heroically in battle. Even though the heavenly emperor of purple clouds was tyrannical beyond compare, he still couldn't escape in the end. This is the cause and effect. Chu Yang let out a long sigh. The soul of Calamity also let out a long sigh. The black fog fluctuated, but he returned to the appearance of an old man. He looked up to the sky for a long time before he murmured somewhat absent-mindedly, "Died heroically in battle, died heroically in battle. Zihao is really dead, really dead. How can he die?" The soul of Calamity was silent for a full 5 minutes. Suddenly he exploded. He beat his chest and stomped his feet, looked up to the sky and roared, "How can he die? Why did he die just like that? Why? This sudden roar made Chu Yang feel as if his head had been shaken. He was immediately shaken to the point of dizziness by this extremely loud roar. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. The soul of Calamity was still shouting and yelling. Zihao shouldn't have died like that. He shouldn't have. He should have died in my hands. He should have died in my hands. Zihao, you damned executioner. Why did you die? The soul of Calamity's expression became even more frenzied. He tore at his own hair and stomped his feet. His face was ferocious and his body was full of illusions. He yelled, "You're dead. There are more than 78,000 wrong souls here. Who are they going to take their lives from? You should have died in my hands. You should only have died in my hands." The soul of Calamity looked up to the sky and roared. Chu Yang's heart trembled. This sentence finally made Chu Yang understand. It completely connected all the causes and effects in this place. It turned out that this place, this super sect, this soul of Calamity, this realm of divine source, was actually destroyed in the hands of the heavenly emperor of purple clouds. It was the heavenly emperor of purple clouds who turned this place into what it was now. In the end, he even used the soul-suppressing stone to completely suppress it. If not for his accidental actions that day, perhaps this realm of divine source would still be sealed for a long time. At this moment, the soul of Calamity was unusually agitated. Black smoke drifted over and over. It could be seen that the agitation in his heart was already uncontrollable. Suddenly, a hand appeared out of thin air and grabbed Chu Yang's neck. Then it lifted him up. "Bastard. Is what you said just now true? Is it true or not?" Chu Yang's feet left the ground. He smiled bitterly and said, "Elder, this is a big matter that the whole world knows. How would I dare to lie? What you said makes sense too." The soul of Calamity loosened his grip and threw Chu Yang to the ground. He said furiously, "But what if the heavenly emperor of purple clouds is dead? That bastard, that demon executioner. That inhumane butcher. He's already dead, but he actually died with the title of a hero. What kind of bullshit legend did he create? How can there be such a good thing in the world? That damned bastard, he's actually a hero even in death. This isn't fair, it's not fair. The heavens are unfair." The soul of Calamity looked up to the sky and roared. He pointed at the sky. "Heavens, you're unfair. You're unfair. You're unfair. Ah." He began to scream hysterically. Chu Yang became more and more anxious. Because although this soul of calamity was now in a state of frenzy and was even a little unconscious, and the space seal had weakened further, Chu Yang still couldn't move at all. If he was still unable to escape before this terrifying fellow regained his senses, then when he truly faced this opponent, there wouldn't even be the slightest bit of luck. Back then, after 300,000 years of accumulation in front of the Heavenly Storm sect, we became a super sect. But just because we killed the whole family of Zihou's sworn brother's descendant, we incurred such a tragic revenge. The soul of the calamity suddenly quieted down and muttered to itself in a somewhat dejected manner. Its voice was very soft, but within that soft voice, there was an infinite amount of violence. Zihou was bored and passed by here, but what does this have to do with him? Why did he meddle in other people's business? Based on what? Based on what? When he said the last three words based on what, he let out an earth-shattering roar. Chu Yang grinned. You killed the whole family of his sworn brother's descendant, and you still have the nerve to say that it has nothing to do with him? What kind of logic is this? But he finally knew that this sect that had disappeared in the annals of history was called the Heavenly Storm sect. He finally solved a mystery in his heart. P.S. After staying up for several days and nights, I slept less than 10 hours in 4 days. I've already reached my limit. Writing these 10 chapters today makes me want to die. This is the 8th chapter, there are still 2 more chapters. Chapter 1895. The Divine Soul was stunned. Shit. Chu Yang laughed. I didn't expect you to really believe it. How satisfying. Ah. You've been deceived. Do you really think the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds is dead? Ah. You childish bastard. He's not dead? The Divine Soul was stunned. His mind was in a mess. Not only is he not dead, he's behind you right now. Chu Yang roared. Big brother Zihou. Kill him quickly. This is the best chance to kill him. His eyes stared straight behind the Divine Soul of the Calamity. His face was filled with surprise and joy, as if he had just survived a disaster. Ah! The Calamity Divine Soul suddenly quivered and exploded. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Urun abruptly rose from the ground and fled frantically. The Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds had flattened the Heavenly Storm sect with one sword. The power of that sword had scared him out of his wits. He still had lingering fears. Although he hated him so much that he couldn't kill his enemy with his own hands, if the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds really appeared, this Divine Soul would definitely run faster than anyone else. After hundreds of thousands of years of loneliness, he had long forgotten the ways of the world. When Chu Yang shouted like this, he was in a trance and extremely furious state. Moreover, Chu Yang had used his bewitching technique without any regard for the consequences. So, he naturally became vigilant. At the same time, his heart was extremely flustered. Just as the soul and heart of the Calamity fell into a state of panic, a crack appeared in the space seal that was originally seamless and without any gaps. A gap finally appeared. Chu Yang was overjoyed. He struggled with all his might and shouted, "Go!" He reached out and pulled the sword spirit, who had been locked and couldn't move from the beginning, into the space with unparalleled speed. The Divine Soul turned back. But he found the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Clouds behind him. He knew that he had been deceived and shouted angrily, "Stay!" The Divine Soul's reaction was really fast. A hand instantly turned into black smoke and chased over at an unimaginable speed. It actually followed closely behind Chu Yang and the sword spirit. Before the tribulation space could close again, it came in with a swoosh. He grabbed Chu Yang's waist even more tightly. Chu Yang felt a strong force pulling him back, and he was unable to resist at all. Alarmed, he shouted, "Sword spirit, you go first." He was caught this time. There was no more luck. He reached out and pushed the sword spirit into the tribulation space, and was about to fly out with the big hand. Otherwise, if the Divine Soul of the tribulation really chased into the tribulation space, neither of them would be able to survive. However, it was at this moment that an unforeseen event occurred. A miserable howl suddenly resounded from outside. Then, the unprecedentedly powerful pulling force disappeared in an instant, because Chu Yang had resisted with all his strength. This time he was still charging forward with all his might. The pulling force disappeared too quickly. With a plop, Chu Yang slammed into the sword spirit's body. Both of them turned into rolling gourds and rolled far away in the tribulation space. In fact, there seemed to be a big black hand on Chu Yang's back. It was tightly wrapped around Chu Yang's waist, but it was slowly turning into a black fog. He didn't know why. The giant hand formed by Tribulation's divine soul was actually broken. It was as if it had been cut into two by a sword. Chu Yang was full of surprise. Who saved me? Who was it that was so capable? Cutting off the Tribulation's divine soul's hand with a sword? But at this moment the Tribulation space was closed again. Even if Chu Yang had heavenly guts, he didn't dare to open it again. He didn't even dare to look back at the outside world. The Tribulation's divine soul's ability was too terrifying. Who knew how high his spiritual perception was? Even if he was in the Tribulation space, he might not be safe. Safety first. In fact, at this point the Tribulation space was definitely a blessing. There was no need to take any more risks. Chu Yang subconsciously took a few deep breaths. His mind calmed down a little and cold sweat broke out all over his body. In an instant his clothes were drenched. Just now he seemed calm and composed, but in fact how could Chu Yang not be afraid? It was just that he had been forcefully suppressing and enduring. Now he was finally safe for the time being. Thinking back to the fear in his heart, he still felt that his soul would scatter at any time. It was too dangerous. It was really too dangerous. Bean-sized beads of sweat trickled down from his forehead. His entire body was trembling. Even his hands were shaking. His face turned deathly pale. Then it turned waxy yellow. Then it turned ashen, and finally, it turned deathly black. He had been changing his face all along the way. And he slowly recovered after a long while. The sword spirit was even weaker than Chu Yang. The Tribulation's divine soul's suppression on his power was several times stronger than Chu Yang's. Their characteristics were more similar. After entering the Tribulation space in the familiar environment, he finally recovered. After calming down, the sword spirit was so touched that he fell to his knees. Lord Sword Master. He choked and couldn't speak. Although he was completely restrained from the start, it didn't affect his vision and hearing. Of course, when he saw Chu Yang sacrificing himself to protect ZJ, his heart was in turmoil and he couldn't calm down anymore. Chu Yang had always said that he treated the sword spirit as a brother. The sword spirit was also very touched, but he couldn't help but doubt. Is it true? Is it true? All the previous sword masters only treated me as a sword spirit, a tool. Are you really that good? Or is it just a way to win me over? But at this moment, the sword spirit didn't have any doubt in his heart. A sword master who used his own life to fight for the sword spirit's life, who did this to such an extent. Even in extreme danger at the last moment he still acted instinctively to protect ZJ. How could he doubt him? Chu Yang said weakly, "Sword spirit, can you be touched later? I can't move now and I don't even have the strength to speak. Don't be touched first, I really don't have the strength to talk or argue with you." As he spoke, blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. When he was outside, his internal organs were continuously shaken by the Tribulation's divine soul's terrifying sound waves, and he was continuously injured. In the end, he forcefully used all his cultivation to activate the power of bewitchment. Under the other party's unintentional but powerful reflection, his body and soul were already seriously injured. It could be said that ever since Chu Yang's debut, he had never suffered such serious injuries. Right now he was sitting down and doing his best. He didn't even have the strength to speak. He wasn't lying. "See if there's any way to get this big black hand off my waist." Chu Yang coughed. "It's so stuck that it's uncomfortable." "Yes." The sword spirit hurriedly stood up. Seeing this big black hand that was gradually dissipating, the sword spirit's eyes shone with a dazzling light. A soul like the sword spirit was a great tonic for the Tribulation's divine soul, but the Tribulation's divine soul was also the best tonic for the sword spirit. It was just that the sword spirit wasn't a threat to the Tribulation's divine soul. In essence, it was just a matter of who was stronger. But there were no absolutes in this world. The sword spirit's body was in a state of constant dissipation. So, it was equivalent to cutting off any thoughts or resistance of the body. So, how could the sword spirit not be excited when the sword spirit's body was in such a state of constant dissipation? Just by swallowing this arm, the sword spirit's cultivation would instantly double. Or even more. How could the sword spirit be polite? He fiercely and impatiently pounced on Chu Yang. Chu Yang frowned, but he could clearly see that the buckle on his waist was getting looser and looser. He kept thinking, what's going on? How could the black hand be broken? A thought flashed through his mind. Oh right, the Tribulation sword went out to collect elixirs and was always outside. Could it be done by the Tribulation sword? But after thinking about it, he felt that it wasn't very likely. Although Chu Yang knew that the Tribulation sword was extremely sharp, it depended on who it was facing. With the current power of the Tribulation Sword, it didn't seem to be able to deal with the Tribulation's divine soul at all. Chapter 1896. This strange figure suddenly appeared, and the moment it appeared, it cursed. From P. After saying that, it even glared fiercely at it. An extremely powerful pressure suddenly came down from the sky. The divine spirit felt as if the whole world was pressing down on it. At this moment, its body felt as if it was going to be crushed into powder. It almost knelt down. What kind of existence was this? How could there be such a powerful existence? The divine spirit felt as if it was really trembling. Facing such an existence, it didn't even have the thought to fight back. It was almost about to cry, why did such a thing suddenly appear? Not only would the divine spirit not know, even if Chu Yang and Shui Leihan were here, they would also be absolutely shocked. Even Shui Leihan definitely didn't know that there was such a heaven-defying existence in the land of the sword. If it was only powerful, the divine spirit might not be so afraid, because it was an immortal soul to begin with. No matter how powerful the other party was, it could always escape. Even if Zihao wasn't dead and was right in front of it, being able to defeat it was already the limit. There was no way he could kill it. The fear earlier was nothing more than a subconscious reaction to its past experience. But just now, in that instant, when the other party's sword came down, one of its arms seemed to have been chopped off when it was still alive, and it lost all feeling. Then, it was completely destroyed by the other party. This meant that the other party was completely capable of dealing with it and killing it. This fact was what the divine spirit was truly most afraid of. After all, it had already been dead for hundreds of thousands of years, and it had also lived in a dead state for hundreds of thousands of years. Even though it was no longer a living person, it cherished the time it could live more than any other living person. To the divine spirit, there was nothing more important than surviving. Naturally, it was even more unwilling to face death again. What was more terrifying was everything that could bring it destruction. That faint shadow looked at it coldly. Come here. The words were extremely short, but it was mixed with the meaning of not allowing any resistance. The two words turned into golden thunderbolts and blasted on the divine spirit. The divine spirit instantly felt as if its soul was about to dissipate. Indescribable pain and fear filled its heart. Yes. Tribulation's divine soul timidly walked over. Because the other party's indescribable strength, especially the fear of death, had long since completely destroyed the divine soul's arrogance. In front of an even stronger expert, the Tribulation divine soul was nothing more than a pitiful worm that was afraid of death. He didn't even dare to take a deep breath. Look at you. That Ing curled his lips in disdain and scolded, look at you. He actually had the nerve to come out and mingle. Why don't you fucking find a piece of tofu and kill yourself? What's the point? It was really depressing. She was actually awakened by a piece of trash like you. Speak, what's your name? How old is he? I'm asking you how old you were before you died. Fuck, are you an idiot? He's quite old. How could she be so insensible? I've wasted all those years of my life. It was as if he had lived his life as a dog. Saying that about you is basically insulting a dog and blaspheming other people's dogs. Bastard. Aren't you just a mass of energy? Don't you dare put on such a big show? What are you pretending for? Peeling you? Peeling you is your honor. What are you looking at? Hurry up and kneel down and reply. How the fuck did you grow so tall? It's like I have to raise my head when I talk to you? Do you think that's appropriate? That's right. Fuck, you don't even know how to kneel? How did you worship your ancestors when you were alive? Compared to that, I'm still very magnanimous. Yes, you should kneel more properly. Spare you? Why should I spare you? What are you howling for? Do you have tears? All you do is thunder and not rain. I didn't want to kill you in the first place. How can I spare you? Why are you so agitated? Why are you kowtowing? Where are you worshipping your ancestors? Hurry up and give me some spirit focus points. Hurry up and tidy up the good stuff here for me. Do you want me to do it myself? You don't have any eyesight at all. Trash your trash. Be good and you'll naturally benefit from it. Seeing Tribulation's soul burning as he went to collect the good stuff, Shadow sighed gloomily. If it weren't for the fact that the little one still needs to train, I really want to kill this guy directly this time. Why is he so disgusting? This kind of trash still has the nerve to live, bah. Back then, I dominated the world and killed people like this on sight. I didn't expect that I still have to control my temper now. Tribulation's sword flashed and emitted a bright light. Hurry up. Fuck, can't you split up countless clones to tidy it up? Did you really become stupid after I said a few words to you? You're so smart. I want to promote you, but I'm too embarrassed to open my mouth. Look at your dull face. You're still clamoring for revenge? Even if your enemy is in front of you, do you dare to make a move? Back then, this sect was established by you, right? Could it be that you were the one who sold it as a bastard? How can such a weak person establish a super sect? Where's your backbone? Where's your strength of character? Fuck. What does it have to do with me? You don't dare to have it in front of me? Nonsense. If you only have backbone and grace in front of people who are weaker than you, what kind of lousy thing is that? It's fine if a man doesn't have strength, but having no backbone is the most terrifying. Don't look at that little strength that's less than a 10,000th of yours. His backbone is 1,000,000 times stronger than yours. Learn from him. And it seems like you're not a man anymore. You're not even human. I'm tight on time. I don't have time to talk to you. I say hurry up. Faster. Haven't you eaten? The pitiful tribulation's divine soul worked hard without complaint under the endless complaints and curses of this unreasonably tyrannical super-existence. He collected all the things that originally belonged to his sect and sent them over. These were the accumulation of the entire sect for hundreds of thousands of years. They were given away just like that. As he collected them, his heart bled. What a cruel life. Why did he let him meet such a guy? Who was this guy? This aura seemed to be even stronger than the purple firmament heavenly emperor back then. No, it should be much stronger. It was simply too much. Of course, he also comforted himself in his heart. Anyway, I'm just a tribulation's divine soul now. Even if all these things were left to me, I wouldn't be able to use them. So, sooner or later, it would be taken advantage of by others. If he gave it away, then so be it. If he gave it away early, it wouldn't take up any space. Who asked him to have a hard fist? If his fist was harder than his, he would be the one robbed. And that existence just sat there and collected the stolen goods without holding back. He shouted and cursed at the same time. Occasionally, when he was unhappy, he would punch and kick. The tribulation's divine soul was angry but didn't dare to say anything. No, he didn't even dare to be angry. He only hoped that this terrifying guy would leave quickly. Remember to make your moves brighter in the future. This guy collected everything. With a wave of his hand, all of them disappeared. He scolded angrily, "You can't provoke just anyone. For example, that guy just now. If you didn't provoke him, would you have been beaten up like this? Am I right? So make your moves brighter. You can live a little longer." The tribulation's divine soul really wanted to cry but had no tears. "You are really my biological father. If I had known that little guy had such a relationship with you, how would I have dared to provoke him? I would have treated him like an ancestor. As expected, my moves weren't bright enough. If I didn't have such a powerful backer, why would that little guy dare to insult me like that? I miscalculated. That's why I said that you are despicable. Despicable beyond belief. That novel is right. You are despicable, despicable, and despicable beyond belief." The shadow fiercely pointed his finger at the tribulation's divine soul's forehead and scolded angrily, "Bastard! Don't you know that you have to transform into a physical body for me to light? Is this little bit of fog very enjoyable? Fuck. You are so insensible. What's the point of keeping you?" The tribulation's divine soul felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. At the same time, he hurriedly transformed himself into a human head with texture. He staggered again and again as the shadow tapped him with his finger. So fucking despicable. The shadow scolded loudly. "You look like a grandson. Bah, a grandson of a grandson. You are fucking born to be a grandson. I don't know how your parents gave birth to you. Fuck. You are such a good for nothing." The tribulation's divine soul wanted to cry but had no tears. The tears in his heart had already flowed into a river. "Alright, I've summoned this sword. I have to go back to sleep now. I can't be bothered with a despicable person like you. Bah, talking to you is blaspheming my status." The shadow raised his eyebrows. "Do you remember what I said?" I remember. I will never dare to disobey. I won't dare to disobey at all. I won't dare to disobey at all." The tribulation's divine soul nodded and bowed, hoping to send this god of plague away quickly. In such a situation he couldn't stay any longer. "That's not enough. From now on, recite it 3 times every day. Once in the morning and once in the evening, including every word I scold you. Let me tell you, I can hear it. If I'm not satisfied one day, I will kill you. You despicable person." Yes, I remember. 3 times a day. Let's go. This is so fucking boring. I only came out once but I had to meet such a disgusting... Fuck. This world is so strange that it's scary. The shadow flashed and disappeared on the strange sword. Immediately after, the sword light flashed and disappeared without a trace with a whoosh. Whoa. The tribulation's divine soul squatted on the ground and cried. Of course, it was the kind of crying that could only thunder and not rain. When had he ever been so wronged? When he was alive he was bullied so much. After he died he was trapped for hundreds of thousands of years. When he finally found someone to relieve his loneliness, he was actually relieved in such a way. He was basically sent away, entertained, and done that. I really don't want to live anymore. The tribulation's divine soul was heartbroken. The god of plague was finally gone. At the thought of this, and the fact that this terrifying and strange fellow was gone, the soul of the calamity began to cry with joy again. Oh, he is finally gone. I believe that even the extraterrestrial demons are not so evil. Oh, I am so happy. Chapter 1897. Inside the space Chu Yang summoned. The sword didn't appear immediately. Chu Yang's heart turned cold. Was it really detained? That divine spirit's cultivation was so high that it might be able to intercept the sword. If that was the case, it might not be safe to stay in this space. Was he really going to die here today? At this moment he suddenly felt his heart move. The sword had returned to his dantian and was lying there docilely. Chu Yang tried to summon it, but the sword was as usual. There was nothing unusual about it. Could it be that the divine spirit didn't notice the sword? Chu Yang was puzzled, but he didn't know what was going on. In a place he couldn't see, a shadow lay down slowly in the heart of the sword. Sigh, let's sleep. Let's see what this little thing does. It's best if it never disturbs me again. The shadow disappeared. As for whether it really fell into a deep sleep, that was unknown. Get out. That was what Chu Yang and the sword spirit wanted to do the most. Although they knew that there would be more and better things on the upper half of the mountain. And this was where the headquarters of the Heavenly Wind and Cloud sect was located. The real essence was here. But Chu Yang and the sword spirit weren't stupid. Why would they take the risk when the divine spirit was so terrifying? It might not even be safe in the space. What they had now was enough for Chu Yang to squander. Chu Yang carefully controlled the space and began to float out, for fear that he would reveal any flaws and be detected by the divine spirit. But after all, he didn't know where to go without using his eyes. And in the space, his divine sense couldn't penetrate. Chu Yang had no choice but to carefully open a crack in the space. He took a peek. When he looked over, he couldn't help but be astonished. It was sunny outside without the slightest bit of haze. The soul of the calamity had actually run off to God knows where. Could it have set up a trap? To lure me out? That's very likely. Chu Yang was suspicious. He carefully determined the direction, and immediately closed the tribulation space again. Then, like a blind man riding a blind horse, he floated towards the crack that he had come from based on his instincts. With the divine spirit's extraordinary cultivation, and with the divine spirit's spiritual body, this place was still his home ground. So, even the slightest movement couldn't escape his detection. Naturally, he had already discovered Chu Yang's traces. Now, his body had turned into an empty void as he watched Chu Yang's tribulation space sneakily and cautiously run out. His expression was extremely complicated. Grandpa. Ancestor, please leave quickly. Please don't do it again. If you do it again, this old man will really disappear like smoke. Just now, I was tormented to the point of collapse 81 times. Why do you need to be so careful? Even if you openly show your face and run, this old man will definitely pretend not to see it. In front of you, I'm just blind and deaf. What? Could it be that he was trying to lure me into making a move? And then let that god of plague play with me again? Save me. Just thinking about it makes me want to die. Please leave quickly. At this moment, the tribulation spirit wished that it could send Chu Yang away with its own hands. However, he didn't dare. He really didn't dare. At this moment, Chu Yang's heart was trembling with fear. Don't be discovered. Don't chase after me. Thank the heavens. My luck has always been very good. This time is no exception. There definitely won't be an exception. There definitely won't be an exception. Now it was a situation where both sides were afraid. Both sides were being careful. They were afraid of exposing themselves. However, one was deliberately hiding. The other was escaping at the speed of a turtle. To be honest, the tribulation spirit was definitely feeling much worse than Chu Yang. If he was discovered and scared this little ancestor, would that person come out again? If I come out and suffer like that again, I won't be able to live anymore. Seeing that Chu Yang actually floated in the wrong direction several times, the tribulation spirit was so anxious that he almost had a heart attack. Every time he wished that he could fly over personally to help Chu Yang adjust his direction and let him out quickly. However, he just didn't dare to. Ancestor, please don't play with me. It's clearly right in front of you. Just move forward a little and you'll be there. Why did you go to the right? I'm so anxious, so anxious. If Chu Yang knew the tribulation spirit's current state of mind, he would definitely be so shocked that he would spit out a mouthful of blood and die. But he didn't know. After carefully probing for dozens of times, he finally entered the passageway. Chu Yang and the sword spirit drove the tribulation space with all their strength and floated up as if they were flying. Until they entered the dark passage, they finally walked through half of the soul-stirring and near-death journey. We can finally leave. Oh my God. Chu Yang and the sword spirit collapsed in the tribulation space. They were sweating profusely from head to toe and cried out in unison. The two of them looked at each other, full of extreme ecstasy of surviving a disaster and escaping death. We can finally leave. Oh my God. In that space, the tribulation spirit appeared and collapsed on the ground, panting heavily. I was so anxious. I was scared to death. Just like Chu Yang and the sword spirit, this extremely powerful calamity divine soul was also filled with extreme joy after surviving a calamity. The grievances I've suffered in my life were not as much as today. Even when facing the purple cloud heavenly emperor back then, he only killed me. But this almost made me collapse and die again after becoming a tribulation spirit. Woo woo woo. In the quiet space there was a strange sound that sounded like weeping and complaining. It was as if someone was crying. This time Chu Yang and the sword spirit looked down in surprise, and then their hair stood on end. What? We can still hear voices here? Damn it. Please don't catch up with us. The two of them sprung up as if they were loaded with springs. Using all of their strength, they sprinted forward at top speed. Their speed was definitely the fastest in their lives. In just a moment they could already see the shining sword above them. The two of them relaxed weakly. Sword spirit, I remember Shui Leihan saying that he didn't know exactly what sect this place belonged to when he came here the last time, right? Chu Yang looked at the sword formed from the sword intent and suddenly recalled this matter. However, he was a little uncertain. Did he say that? The sword spirit said blankly, I don't remember. Chu Yang nodded. It doesn't matter. If I were Shui Leihan, I wouldn't say it directly. The place that the purple firmament celestial emperor had destroyed and sealed was definitely a place with a great background. If I say it, I'm afraid there will be other trouble. When the two of them went in, it was probably early in the morning. And when they came out now, it was already afternoon. In other words, they had stayed in there for a whole 2 hours. Oh no, there's still an auction tonight. Chu Yang wiped his sweat. Sword spirit, you continue to stay here. I'll go back first. Sword master, there's no more death energy here. It's useless for me to stay here. Why don't I go back with you? Asked the sword spirit. Sure. One man and one soul. He drove the tribulation space as fast as lightning. Sword spirit, your cultivation seems to have improved a lot. It's practically doubled. Isn't that so? After swallowing the arm of that tribulation spirit just now, my cultivation has more than doubled. Furthermore, after devouring the souls of 10,000 souls, my cultivation base has soared to the middle rank of the saint realm. I'm only one step away from the peak level of saint. And this is still before I completely digest it. If I can't break through the limits of saint immediately, I believe it's about the same. The sword spirit was a little excited. Good. That's great. Chu Yang was excited. The sword spirit was definitely one of his own. The higher his cultivation rose, the more advantageous it would be for him. But there's still one thing that's quite strange. The sword spirit frowned and said doubtfully, even if I don't know why the arm of that tribulation spirit fell into the tribulation space, why didn't it resist at all? That's the purest soul energy. This matter was truly puzzling. Logically speaking, there should be some remnant of divine consciousness in there. Chu Yang also frowned. I can't figure this out either. But no matter what, it's good that we escaped. Let's leave that tribulation spirit to those big shots to worry about. Okay. When the two of them returned to the Chu clan's courtyard, they were suddenly shocked when they reached the gate. The gate of the Chu clan's courtyard had been turned into powder. It seemed that someone had violently smashed it into pieces. And now, in the courtyard, the sound of fierce battle could be heard. Is someone causing trouble? The sword spirit was furious. He immediately wanted to rush in. Wait, Chu Yang looked coldly and suddenly waved his hand slowly. This must be Yuan Shu's way of revenge. But we're not strong enough for the time being. We'll only embarrass ourselves if we force our way in. Then what should we do? The sword spirit said anxiously. Chu Yang's eyes were deep. He said, let me think about it. Don't act rashly for the time being. Chu Yang looked calm, but his heart was already in a mess. He wanted to rush in more than the sword spirit, but it was meaningless to act rashly. How was the Chu clan's courtyard now? How were Tai Budian and Wu Chanshan inside? How were the younger siblings? How were the children? How were the girls? How were the other sabersmen? Especially Tai Budian. She was still carrying the prophecy of mending the heavens on the path of 3 lives. Moreover, Yuan Shu's heart was restless. Would they be in danger? But Chu Yang tried his best to control himself. He knew that what he needed most now was to calm down. If he really rushed in without a care, then everything would be over. What should he do? Could he use the tribulation space to intimidate them? Chu Yang thought about it. It seemed that this was the only way that was relatively feasible at the moment. He made up his mind. Blood almost spurted out of his eyes. He said fiercely, Sword Spirit, let's do this. The Sword Spirit listened to him silently. With a whoosh, he left the tribulation space and flew away. Chu Yang calmed his mind and took a deep breath. He controlled the tribulation space and sneaked into the Chu clan's courtyard. P.S. Before 10 p.m., the difference was 1,100 votes. After 10 p.m., the difference was 1,500 votes. Grit your teeth and continue to fight. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.